Chapter 1660. Yi Qianqian? Shunjilia urged when he didn't hear a response. Yi Qianqian was sitting on the ground. Her entire body was wet. Her ankle was in excruciating pain. It felt as if it would break if she moved it. Yi Qianqian slowly moved toward the toilet. She closed the lid and stood up with the toilet in her arms. Shunjilia heard the movement inside and shouted again, "Yi Qianqian, what are you doing in there?" Yi Qianqian felt even more aggrieved when she heard Shunjilia's words. She shouted back, "I told you that my ankle hurts. Why are you being so noisy?" Shunjilia was speechless. He thought about it and reached out to twist the door handle. Yi Qianqian immediately widened her eyes when she heard that. She warned him, "What are you doing? Are you trying to peek at me? Pfft! What's there to look at with that tiny body of yours? I'm afraid that you'll die in there." Shunjilia twisted the door handle hard and realized that it was locked from the inside. When Yi Qianqian heard that, she roared, "You're the one who's going to die in there. Hey, I'm opening the door. It's so dark anyway. I can't see anything. Besides, I'm not interested in you. Go to hell." Yi Qianqian was even more annoyed. She grabbed the toilet and lifted her body up. However, Shunjilia kicked the door open with one foot. She was caught off guard by the sudden bang. Yi Qianqian jumped in fright. She broke out in a cold sweat. Her body trembled and she stared ahead with her eyes wide open. She vaguely saw a huge shadow coming toward her. Yi Qianqian shrank back and warned him, "What? What are you trying to do?" Shunjilia laughed impatiently and said, "What can I do to someone like you? Come on, I'll get you out of here." As he spoke, he squatted down in front of her. Don't look over here." Yi Qianqian reached out to look for his eyes. "Be careful, or I'll gouge your eyes out." Shunjilia still had a little night vision, but when he squatted down, his body blocked the pitiful amount of light. He couldn't see anything at all. When he heard that, Shunjilia laughed and said, "I won't look. I won't feel anything even if I look at you." As she spoke, Yi Qianqian covered Shunjilia's eyes with her wet hands. Shunjilia reached out to hug her in the dark. However, as soon as he stretched out his hand, his fingertips came into contact with soft flesh. Suddenly, his heart twitched. Shunjilia immediately retracted his hand, and his cheeks began to burn. Yi Qianqian noticed his small movement, and her breathing became heavy. She used her other hand to protect her body and deliberately shouted, "Why did you poke my stomach? Hurry up, the ground is very cold." So it was her stomach. Shunjilia breathed a sigh of relief, but he was also slightly disappointed. Then, he stretched out his hand and clearly felt his hand pass under her armpit. It was soft. Yi Qianqian exclaimed. Shunjilia thought she was just being nervous and ignored her. He pulled her into his arms. Yi Qianqian roared, "B***** pervert." As she spoke, she raised her hand and gave him a slap. The slap on Shunjilia's face wasn't heavy, but it stunned him. Subconsciously, he touched the soft thing in his palm. The soft thing suddenly became hard. Chapter 1661. Shunjilia immediately realized what it was. He quickly retracted his hand and explained, "It's a misunderstanding. It's a misunderstanding. I thought it was your back." Yi Qianqian screamed angrily, "Back my ass. Ah, I really thought it was your back. Who knew it was your front? I'm innocent. It's such a big asterisk here. UF asterisk king excuse." Yi Qianqian reached out and pushed him forcefully. F asterisk CK. Even if it's A asterisk, how would I know if you didn't get hard? I can't see. Shunjilia felt that he was more innocent than Do-yi and shouted, "Besides, I didn't do it on purpose." You're still talking. You're still talking. Slap after slap landed on his body. Shenjilia gasped for air and quickly held her hand. Shenjilia was very strong. He quickly restrained Yi Qianqian and said, all right. I was wrong. I'll get you out of here first. Get your *SS out of here. Yi Qianqian's voice sounded like she was about to cry. She had never been touched by a man in her entire life. Moreover, not only did he take advantage of her, but he also humiliated and abused her. What a SL*T. Shenjilia knew that he was in the wrong. When he heard her look like she was about to cry, he closed his eyes and said, all right. You're my *SS. I'll get you out of here. Behave yourself. As he spoke, Shenjilia reached out and touched her hand. When he was sure that he wouldn't touch anything he shouldn't, he pulled her up and slowly supported her. Yi Qianqian's ankle was in unbearable pain. She had no choice but to support Shenjilia and limped toward the sofa in the living room. As soon as he put Yi Qianqian down, the surrounding lights lit up, and the sound of electrical appliances could be heard. Both Yi Qianqian and Shenjilia were stunned. They instinctively looked at each other. With one glance, Shenjilia saw a snow-white expanse and Yi Qianqian's dumbfounded expression. Yi Qianqian screamed at the top of her lungs and raised her leg to kick him. She covered her body with both hands. Shenjilia felt a rush of blood rush to his head. He suddenly felt his body heat up. When he saw Yi Qianqian in this state, Shenjilia immediately covered his eyes and shouted, I didn't see anything. Turn around. Shenjilia immediately turned around and stammered, I really didn't see anything. Scram. Shenjilia coughed uncomfortably and said, I'll get you some clothes. As he spoke, he quickly walked into her room and opened the closet. He found a dress that looked easy to wear. He pinched a pair of pink striped panties and a black bra with the tips of his fingers before he walked out. However, as soon as he stepped out, he immediately closed his eyes. He tossed the clothes to her and closed his eyes as he said, hurry up and get dressed. I'll take you to the hospital. Yi Qianqian pursed her lips and watched helplessly as he tossed the clothes to the side of the table. She didn't know what to feel. She picked up the clothes and put them on one by one before saying, I'm done. Shenjilia turned his head and looked at her feet. Which foot hurts? Yi Qianqian kicked her left foot. When Shenjilia saw it, he squatted down. It looked like the injury was quite serious. It was already red, swollen, and a little green. Did you twist it? Does it hurt? Chapter 1662. Yi Qianqian gave him a look that said, you're talking nonsense. When Shenjilia heard what she said, he felt uncomfortable all over. He coughed lightly and said, I'll take you to the hospital. Let's go. As soon as he said that, Shenjilia reached out to grab Yi Qianqian's arm. Yi Qianqian was suddenly touched. She was shocked, and she felt a little strange. Shenjilia also felt a little awkward, but he couldn't underestimate her injuries. Hardening his heart, he reached out and carried her horizontally in his arms. Yi Qianqian wanted to struggle, but she immediately calmed down. She obediently nestled in his arms and pursed her lips in silence. Her heart suddenly raced, and Yi Qianqian's cheeks grew hotter. Shenjilia didn't dare look at her, but before he opened the door, he heard the doorbell ring. When he opened it, he saw that it was the property manager. Hello, but when he saw Shenjilia carrying a woman, he immediately swallowed his words. What? What happened? Shenjilia angrily replied, the power went out. She fell in the shower and got hurt. When the property manager heard that, he immediately apologized. I'm so sorry. This was an accident. Everyone on this floor has a power outage. I'm really sorry. That's enough. I don't have time. I have to take her to the hospital. Oh, okay. Do you need help? I have a car. Why don't I take you and your girlfriend to the hospital together? It's on the way. Yi Qianqian turned her head away and said, don't spout nonsense. Who's his girlfriend? When the property manager heard that, he panicked and said, could it be brother and sister? But wasn't one surnamed Shen and the other Yi? Moreover, the two of them didn't look alike. How could they be brother and sister? Not really. Shengjilia took a step forward. Then I'll have to trouble you. Where's your car? Ah, it's in the basement. Let's go down together. Okay. Shengjilia quickly closed the door with Yi Qianqian in his arms and entered the elevator. The air was unbelievably quiet. The property manager also felt very awkward. He laughed and said, Miss Yi has lived here for a long time, and nothing like this has ever happened before. This is only the first time. It's only the first time and it's already so serious. If it happens a few more times, won't I die here? Yi Qianqian was filled with anger. If I die, will you apologize to me so that I won't be angry? Yi Qianqian's words were very blunt, which made the property manager even more embarrassed. She said, I'm really sorry, but it's fortunate that your boyfriend was around. He was able to discover it in time. Otherwise, it would have been bad if there had been any delay. Bah, your boyfriend. Yi Qianqian was about to speak when she heard Shengjilia say, that's enough. It's good that you're fine now. What's there to be angry about? The entire floor has been shut down. We're not the only ones. That's the property management's responsibility. If they had maintained it properly, would this have happened? Yes, yes, yes. What happened today will not happen a second time. When Yi Qianqian heard his sincere apology, she couldn't bring herself to vent her anger on him anymore. She glared at Shengjilia and shouted, it's all your fault. If not, how could I have fallen for no reason? This is my fault again? Shengjilia felt completely wronged. Is there anyone like you? If you fall, so be it. Who wouldn't fall? Why are you blaming me? Chapter 1663. Shengjilia stammered, but when he looked down and saw Yi Qianqian's expression, which said, if you dare talk back to me, I'll kill you. Shengjilia was at a loss for words. Pursing her lips, she looked at the man and asked, where's your car? It's here. The property manager immediately drove over. Come on. Yi Qianqian wasn't heavy, but it was still tiring to carry her. The property manager opened the car door, and Shengjilia carefully placed Yi Qianqian inside before sitting in the car himself. Yi Qianqian glanced at him and asked, are you going to sit here? Shengjilia was a little confused and asked, what else? Who's watching you? All right. Yi Qianqian sat beside him. Her emotions were very complicated. This guy. He's quite nice to me. She seems to have fallen for him. Otherwise, why wouldn't she be angry when he pinched me there? Her heart was beating faster and faster. Yi Qianqian turned her head away and looked out the window. The property manager drove obediently and didn't dare look at them. Fortunately, it was night time, and there weren't many people on the road. The car drove smoothly to the hospital and quickly dropped them off. Yi Qianqian was sent to the emergency room. It was confirmed that she had sprained her ankle, but it wasn't serious. However, she probably wouldn't be able to walk freely for the next few days. After applying medicine and bandaging, Yi Qianqian supported Shengjilia and limped back home. Shengjia's hand was held, and he supported her with the other hand. He asked, do you want some snacks? No. I'll die of obesity if I eat snacks at night. Yi Qianqian looked at the ground and limped. Very slowly, Shengjilia looked at the back of her head and held her arm as he said, you're too thin. You should eat more. Damn it. How am I thin? My stomach is chubby. I'm so strong. I won't eat. It's useless to have chubby stomachs. You have to have chubby breasts. Pfft. I won't eat. Then can you walk faster? Can you walk faster with a limp? Shunjilia was speechless and said, I'll carry you then. No. I'll walk on my own. When Shunjilia heard that, he ignored it. He pulled her hand over and carried her in his arms. Yi Qianqian was shocked and shouted, Shunjilia, are you crazy? Shunjilia writhed, but his body didn't sway in the slightest. He pressed her down and said, behave yourself. This is a hospital. If you keep shouting like this, how will the other patients rest? Yi Qianqian pouted, but she quickly calmed down. She leaned on his arm. As long as she looked forward, she would be able to see his chiseled chin and his prominent Adam's apple. The sexy label of a man, Shunjilia felt Yi Qianqian looking at him. He looked down and asked, have you fallen in love with me? Bah! Shameless! Aren't you in love with me? Why are you blushing? Shunjilia's eyes were mischievous. Don't tell me you've developed feelings for me over time. F*CKU. How shameless can you be? Yi Qianqian denied flatly, but the warmth on her face was spreading. It was steaming hot, as if it was about to burst into flames. Shunjilia chuckled but didn't say anything else. Yi Qianqian's heart beat faster and faster, and her body tensed up. She was genuinely nervous. Shunjilia could feel it clearly. In a very low voice, he said, stubborn. Chapter 1664. She glanced at him. When she realized that he wasn't looking at her, she pretended not to hear him. Soon, they reached the car. Shunjilia put Yi Qianqian in and got in himself. The two of them didn't speak again. The journey home was peaceful and quiet. Yi Qianqian got out of the car uncomfortably, but Shunjilia was already waiting outside. When he saw her come out, he reached out and pulled her over, his other hand protecting her head. He slammed the door shut and reached out to carry her. But Yi Qianqian immediately stopped him and said awkwardly, I think I'd better walk by myself. Shunjilia grunted in acknowledgement. He held her hand and slowly walked in front. Yi Qianqian felt a little disappointed. He didn't insist, but it was a little awkward to be hugged by him. They weren't even close. How could they be hugging each other all the way? Well, Yi Qianqian was pulled along. Because she was walking slowly, she fell behind. But all of a sudden, his hand was pulled forward. Yi Qianqian was a little shocked. She stared at him with wide eyes. Shunjilia held her in his arms. Then, his lips landed on the side of her face. It was as light as a feather brushing against the bottom of her heart. It was ticklish. Her whole body tensed up in disbelief. Shunjilia carried her in his arms. It was a classic princess carry. Then, he strode forward. Yi Qianqian was still in a daze. She couldn't recover from his kiss for a long time. When they reached home, just as Shunjilia was entering the password to open the door, Yi Qianqian finally said, What? What do you mean? Shunjilia glanced at her and didn't say anything. He opened the door and carried her into her room. After putting Yi Qianqian on the bed, Shunjilia didn't leave. Instead, he sat on the edge of her bed and gazed at her as he said, I'll take responsibility for you. Yi Qianqian's heart skipped a beat without warning. Then, as if she had gone crazy, she jumped up and down. What, although you're flat-chested and your front is the same as your back, I've touched you and seen you. It's not right for me to not take responsibility. Yi Qianqian's heart, which had been racing, suddenly felt as if it had been bitten by a dog. Yi Qianqian clenched her teeth and clenched her fists. What did you say? Shunjilia knew that he was going to get beaten up again when he saw the way she was acting. Shunjilia quickly waved his hands and shouted, Calm down, big sis. I'm telling the truth. She screamed, grabbed a pillow, and threw it at him. She roared, "Get lost!" Yi Qianqian was furious. Shenjilia caught the pillow and pushed it in her direction. Even his entire body was pressed against her side, absolutely suppressing her. Yi Qianqian's heart raced. There was a pillow between them, but they could clearly see each other's expressions. Shenjilia's expression was very serious. His red lips and pearly white teeth made her heart palpitate even more when he smiled slightly. Crazy, crazy. Yi Qianqian really wanted to slap herself. This guy was just joking. Why did he take it so seriously? You'd be stupid if you took it seriously. Yi Qianqian warned herself in her heart, but she couldn't bear to look away from his face. Chapter 1665. I'm serious. I'm responsible for you. I won't touch you for free. Shenjilia stared at her. I said I didn't see anything, but I saw everything. Your chest is really flat. Yi Qianqian gritted her teeth and raised her hand to slap his face. However, Shenjilia was quick to react and immediately blocked his hand. Yi Qianqian had another hand, but before she could do anything, Shenjilia killed her in the cradle. You're courting death. Before she could finish her sentence, Shenjilia lowered his head and kissed her on the lips. Yi Qianqian found it hard to believe. Her eyes widened and she stood rooted to the ground. Shenjilia quickly left. He stood up and quickly said, "Rest early." Yi Qianqian was still in a state of confusion. She stared blankly at the ceiling. It was a chandelier, shining with colorful light. Her heartbeat, however, seemed to have gone numb. She couldn't feel it anymore. Her ears were ringing, and she couldn't snap out of it for a long time. But very quickly, he sat up abruptly. As she watched Shenjilia close the door behind him, she screamed at the ceiling, "Ah! Shenjilia!" Shenjilia stood on the edge of the balcony, his cheeks burning. When he heard Yi Qianqian's shriek, he scratched his head in frustration. But then there was the sound of the door opening. Shenjilia's heart skipped a beat. He turned around and saw Yi Qianqian limping toward him with an angry look on her face. Shenjilia felt guilty. When he saw that she was obviously here to settle scores with him, he didn't know what to do. What he did just now was purely impulsive. He had kissed her face and her mouth. How was she going to hit him? Heavens, Shenjilia suddenly felt that the days ahead were going to be tough for him. However, when he saw Yi Qianqian's determination to take revenge despite her crippled leg, he went up to her. He held her up and said, "If you're lame, don't run around. If you get hurt again, I won't help you." Looking at his guilty and evasive face, it seemed that he was also reflecting on himself. When Yi Qianqian saw his pink cheeks, the anger that had been burning in her stomach suddenly disappeared. With a straight face, Yi Qianqian said, "I'm going to ask you a few questions. Answer me honestly." Shenjilia felt that this didn't match Yi Qianqian's personality. For a moment, he didn't know how to respond. He thought that she would beat him until he begged for mercy, and he was ready for that. Who would have thought that he was here to ask a question? There must be a trap. However, he also didn't want to be beaten. Ask away. Shenjilia threw caution to the wind. First of all, you. Yi Qianqian's face was getting redder and redder, and her heart was beating faster and faster. She braced herself and asked loudly, "Do you like me?" Shenjilia was silent for a moment. Seeing her blushing face, he nodded seriously, "Yes." Yi Qianqian's land, which had been barren for more than 20 years, suddenly blossomed with flowers. Yi Qianqian suppressed her emotions and kept a straight face as she asked, "When? When did it start? Didn't you like Lily before? You have a change of heart so quickly, scumbag." As soon as she said that, Yi Qianqian immediately felt that something was amiss. She felt vexed. Why did he have to ask such a question? What an idiot. Chapter 1666. But after a long time, Shenjilia's face was still the same. His eyes were a little deep. He looked at her as if he was a little strange and said, "She is already married. Do you want me to be a mistress?" "Ah, that's true. No one said that you had to love someone for a lifetime. Married people could get divorced. What's more, Lily was not interested in this guy from the beginning." Yi Qianqian didn't know what to say for a moment. She looked at Shenjilia, and the fiery blush on her cheeks subsided. It seemed that there was no need to be so nervous. They were so familiar with each other, and he might even think that her nervousness was very funny. Yi Qianqian pretended to be calm and coughed softly. "Then, I quite admire Lily. She is very strong. I always thought that it was a waste for her to marry O Ming. That guy is a scumbag." Shenjilia moved closer to her and enunciated each word clearly. "But I later realized that if I really like someone, I don't care about what he was like in the past. It's just like how I liked Lily in the past. I didn't mind her being with O Ming and having an abortion. I just wanted to save her from the abyss of suffering." Yi Qianqian didn't feel very comfortable when she heard that. He had really liked Lily. Of course, Yi Qianqian knew that. But now, she had just asked him if he liked her, and he immediately said that. Wasn't that not very good? However, when she saw Shenjilia's serious expression, Yi Qianqian coughed softly and took a step back. "Pfft, but later, I found that my love for Lily was not the kind of love that a man has for a woman." As Shenjilia spoke, his footsteps slowly approached. Yi Qianqian was shocked and subconsciously avoided him. She said, "That. What is that?" "Appreciation and the desire to conquer that I can't get." Yi Qianqian was annoyed when she heard that. "Bah! Scumbag! This is human nature. The more you can't get, the more you want it. You are also like that, Yi Qianqian." Shenjilia smiled slightly. "But later, I saw it clearly." Yi Qianqian took a step back. The pain of the sprain on her ankle made her sweat a little. "Most of my feelings for her are admiration and sympathy. Most importantly, I think she's a good girl." "Ha." Yi Qianqian couldn't stand it any longer. She glanced behind her and slowly inched toward the sofa. Shenjilia took the opportunity to walk over and said, "I'm done. Do you have any other questions?" Yi Qianqian was embarrassed. The blush on her face rose again. She said, "You've gone on for too long. I've forgotten what I wanted to say. I have already guessed it." "What?" "It's true." Yi Qianqian was even more confused and asked again, "What?" "It's true that your chest is flat." Yi Qianqian was furious when she heard that. She grabbed a pillow and threw it at him, roaring, "Get lost." Shenjilia laughed heartily. He grabbed the pillow and said, "Do you want to take another shower? You just sat on the ground for a while, and you took a bath for nothing again. It's none of your business. Get lost." Yi Qianqian grabbed another pillow and threw it at him. Shenjilia accepted it with a smile and asked, "Are you done with your questions?" "I'm done." "All right, then it's my turn to ask questions." Yi Qianqian's eyes widened. "Do you have any more questions?" Chapter 1667. Yi Qianqian's face was full of question marks. At the same time, her cheeks were burning. She glared at Shenjilia and shouted angrily, "What kind of question is that? It's a serious question. You just have to answer me yes or no." "No. No." Yi Qianqian immediately thought of something. If she were to tell him that she had never kissed anyone in her life, would it be embarrassing? Yi Qianqian immediately changed her mind and said, "Yes." Shenjilia slowly leaned over and slowly asked, "So, yes or no?" Yi Qianqian's heart skipped a beat, and she instinctively stepped back. Don't lie to me. Shenjilia's voice was very soft, but at that moment, it was very bewitching. Yi Qianqian felt like her brain was going to explode. She mumbled, "No, then, do you want to try? Try. Try." Before Yi Qianqian could react, Shenjilia's face was already very close to hers. Shenjilia's nose was very straight. Now that he was so close, Yi Qianqian could clearly see the tip of his nose. She instinctively shrank back, but before she could avoid it, Shenjilia held her hand in place. Yi Qianqian's breath stopped, and her face was burning. Shenjilia slowly approached her with his head slightly tilted to the side. Soon, he was close. Slowly, time seemed to be magnified countless times. Yi Qianqian's mind was in a daze, and she even forgot to breathe. The soft touch on her lips was even clearer and more real than before. Shenjilia gently stuck out his tongue and quietly slid it across her lips. Yi Qianqian felt like she was struck by lightning. Suddenly, she ducked back and subconsciously pushed him away. Looking at Shenjilia's face, Yi Qianqian gasped for breath and blinked her eyes. She was still in shock. Shenjilia's gaze deepened. When he saw her reaction, his body slightly leaned forward. He silently approached her, but the aggressive aura of a man was extremely obvious. Yi Qianqian shrank back and stammered, "Wait. Wait a minute." Shenjilia stopped and looked at her. We're not suitable like this, not suitable." Shenjilia found it a little funny. He smiled and asked, "Why not?" "I think." However, before she could finish her sentence, Shenjilia cut her off. Shenjilia cupped her face in his hands and easily pried open her lips and teeth. He reached for her little tongue. Yi Qianqian was even more confused. Her eyes widened in disbelief. Facing the storm in front of him, he did not know how to respond. She subconsciously twisted her lips, and she could clearly feel the liquid dripping down from the corner of her lips. This was saliva. So dirty. Yi Qianqian was a little resistant, but before she knew it, she was slowly being influenced by him. His mind was in a daze, but he felt as if he was walking on air. Shenjilia suddenly pushed her away. He looked at her blushing face and asked, "Aren't you afraid of suffocating to death?" Yi Qianqian's vision darkened. When she heard that, she pushed him away, wiped her mouth, and said, "You're so dirty. How dare you put saliva in my mouth?" Shenjilia burst out laughing. "It's obviously your saliva, okay? I don't even despise you, but you're the one despising me." "Bah, I'm not dirty, you are." Chapter 1668. Yi Qianqian blinked. She seemed to have a vague idea of what he was talking about. But suddenly, she didn't quite understand what he was talking about. Yi Qianqian gulped. She didn't understand what was going on. When Shenjilia saw her confused expression, he chuckled and asked, "You don't understand?" Yi Qianqian shook her head. He understood, yet he didn't. It was very contradictory, but there was indeed such a contradiction. Shenjilia stared at her. Their faces were very close together. He said, "What I mean is, we can get even dirtier in the future." She instinctively covered her chest with her hands and stared at him with her eyes wide open. Shenjilia was silent for a moment when he saw her reaction. After a long time, he said, "You wish." Yi Qianqian was furious. She pushed him away and shouted, "Get lost." Shenjilia laughed out loud. He loved it when she got all worked up. However, not only did Shenjilia's body not move, but he was as steady as a mountain. He reached out and grabbed her hand. He leaned over and said, "Be with me. Be my girlfriend." Yi Qianqian was at a loss for words. She struggled with her hands and stepped back. Shenjilia didn't let go of her. Instead, he pressed his body against hers and asked, "What are you trying to do?" "Bah. I should be the one asking you what you want to do. You're pressing on me. Weren't you the one who asked me to press you down? Look at how heavy you are. You almost brought me down with you," Shenjilia said indignantly. Yi Qianqian kicked him and yelled, "Get lost. You still want to get lost?" Shenjilia's expression was one of deep guilt. "I didn't expect you to be such a person." Yi Qianqian trembled in anger at his shamelessness. She demanded, "Are you going to get lost or not?" Shenjilia seemed to be struggling for a moment, but he quickly regained his composure and said, "Since you've made such a request, then I have no choice but to." As he spoke, before Yi Qianqian could react, he released his grip on the back of her head and lifted her up. Yi Qianqian was stunned. Her hands curled up in front of her. She didn't know what to do. Only then did she react. With a red face, she dodged backwards and pushed him away, shouting, "Get lost." Shenjilia chuckled and said, "I'll carry you back to your room." "You, go away. Go away." Yi Qianqian was so embarrassed that she almost died. Why did it seem like she was the one begging him to f***ck her? She clearly didn't mean that. Shenjilia pretended not to understand what she was saying and made to pick her up. Yi Qianqian resisted even more and shouted, "Go away. Help. You're raping me." Shenjilia replied, "You wish." Yi Qianqian felt extremely humiliated. Shenjilia seemed a little helpless, but the corners of his lips curled up into a wide smile. He lowered his head and captured her lips in a deep kiss. Yi Qianqian fell silent, but her entire body tensed up. "Don't worry, unless you promise me, I won't do anything to you." "Liar. I won't. I haven't even agreed to be your girlfriend, and you've already kissed me so many times." "No? Isn't that a tacit agreement?" "I didn't." Ugh, Yi Qianqian was suddenly assaulted again. Her eyes widened, and she stood rooted to the ground. Chapter 1669. Yi Qianqian was being carried in a princess hug again. When Yi Qianqian entered her room, she saw her 1.8-meter-long bed. Images that were not suitable for children flashed through her mind. Her face was even redder, and her heart was beating faster. Yi Qianqian's head was almost buried in her chest like an ostrich. She twisted her body uncomfortably and coughed lightly. "You, put me down. I want to sleep." "Yes." Shenjilia placed Yi Qianqian on the bed and helped her take off her shoes. Since Yi Qianqian's foot was injured, she had been wearing slippers on her way to the hospital, so it was very convenient to drag her along. After Shenjilia put Yi Qianqian down, he pulled the blanket over her and covered her with it. His heart was itching. He did not want to leave, especially in the middle of the night, a man and a woman alone, cough cough, the thought of it made his heart itch even more. He looked at Yi Qianqian's head, which had already burrowed under the blanket, and the corners of his lips curled up slightly. So she could be shy? He really couldn't tell normally. Forget it, the future is long. Shenjilia turned around and walked to the door. However, he still reluctantly turned his head to look at her and said, "Good night." As he spoke, he turned off the lights and closed the door. His footsteps gradually faded away. Yi Qianqian finally crawled out from under the covers. She glanced at the closed door and gasped for air. Only God knew that after she was covered in the quilt, her mind was filled with images that were not suitable for children. What was even more frightening was that the male and female protagonists in the scene were not suitable for children. Yi Qianqian was going crazy. She scratched her head hard. She wanted to scream, but she was afraid that Shenjilia would laugh at her. She grabbed the blanket with both hands and twisted it violently to vent the anger in her heart. However, she felt that she couldn't vent her feelings just by pinching the blanket. Hugging the blanket, she tossed and turned. When she thought about Shenjilia's repeated kisses, she actually, was overjoyed. When Yi Qianqian heard Shenjilia say that they could be even dirtier, she felt like she was about to explode. After preserving her virginity for so many years, was there finally a chance to give it away? But, I heard that the first time is always very painful. What if it hurts? No, that's not right. Why was she thinking about all this? She hadn't even taken a step yet. Don't think. But I'm so happy, what should I do? Yi Qianqian hugged the blanket and couldn't help but laugh quietly. But at the same time, she felt sorry for Shenjilia. How could he go blind at such a young age? After his shower, Shenjilia still couldn't suppress the restlessness in his heart. He turned off all the lights and took a bottle of beer from the fridge. He sat on the balcony with his shirt off and started drinking. As the cold wine flowed down his throat, Shenjilia's mood finally calmed down a little. Looking down, the tall buildings were brightly lit, creating a riot of colors. The breeze of the summer night was cool and comfortable. Raising his head, he saw a crescent moon in the pitch-black sky. Just like Yi Qianqian's eyes. Well, the weather is good. He was in a good mood as well. Shenjilia sat there until the latter half of the night. When he returned to his room, he couldn't fall asleep for a long time. Never in his wildest dreams had Shenjilia imagined that he would love a woman to such an extent. When he recalled Yi Qianqian's ostrich-like reaction, he couldn't help but smile. Chapter 1670. Yu Lily's belly was getting bigger day by day, as if it was inflated with air. However, during the next checkup, the doctor warned Ming, "You must be careful. Your wife's uterus is a little thin and a little cold. You must keep the child safe. Otherwise, it will be difficult to have children in the future." The doctor's words scared Ming. He was careful every day, afraid that Yu Lily would hurt the baby if she bumped into it. Fortunately, they managed to get through the first 3 months peacefully. That day, Yu Lily slept until the sun was high up in the sky. When she came out after washing up, Ming had already returned home for lunch after working all morning. Seeing Yu Lily's sleepy look, his heart itched to go up to her and kiss her. Yu Lily was awakened by the kiss. She waved her hand and said, "Go away, I heard a big piece of news today." "What?" Yu Lily looked at him with a pair of big bright eyes. Ever since she was pregnant, her skin seemed to be filled with water. It was very good. Ming's heart itched even more. He pulled her into the room and said, "Li Jinan is getting married." Ah. Yu Lily was surprised, but she quickly felt that she was making a fuss about nothing. She asked, "Isn't he with Yi Yu a long time ago?" "Yeah." Ming sighed. He pressed his forehead against hers and said, "But his mother didn't agree. His mother heard that Yi Yu was in prison and married, so she wouldn't let her in." Yu Lily felt a little pity when she heard that. She could understand why Li Jinan's mother didn't agree. She suddenly thought of something and said, "But the girl is pregnant. It's not right not to get married." So, Li Jinan used this as a bargaining chip with his mother. Do you know what happened to his mother? Huh? What happened? Ming asked. She cried, threw a tantrum, and threatened to hang herself. She didn't allow him to marry her. What should we do? Yi Yu is pregnant. We can't let her get an abortion, can we? Who knows what this third bro has up his sleeve? Ming smiled faintly and pushed her onto the bed. This guy looks strange, but he's full of evil tricks. When Yu Lily was pushed down, she immediately knew what he wanted to do. She struggled and said, "Be careful, child. You're full of bad ideas too." "How could I? My feelings for you are sincere," Ming said softly as he kissed her face. Yu Lily turned her head away. No. Your son doesn't like you. Then I don't want a son. I want a daughter. Your daughter doesn't like you either, the old residents of the Li family. Qin Shuhua sat on the sofa. Her eyes were red as she looked at the pregnancy test in her hands. Her heart was in pain. Li Jinan and Yi Yuyu sat opposite her. One of them had his head lowered and didn't dare to speak. The other person was sitting upright, waiting for his mother's reaction. More than a month pregnant? Qin Shuhua asked, looking at her. After a while, Yi Yuyu realized that she was asking her. She immediately looked up and nodded her head. Yes, Auntie. Qin Shuhua's hands trembled. She couldn't help but think back to about 2 months ago, when she had instigated Li Jinan to say, "What's done cannot be undone." She had been afraid that her son would go against human ethics and disobey her. Chapter 1671. Mom, no matter what, this is a small life. Since she's here, it means that she's fated to be with our family. If we don't keep her, we'll be committing a grave sin. Li Jinan looked at Qin Shuhua with his dark, almond-shaped eyes. That was what Qin Shuhua was thinking, too. When she heard it out loud, it only deepened. So what if it's fated? So what if it's a grave sin? It's one thing for my daughter-in-law to be married, but she's actually been in jail? If word of this gets out, how will others view the Li family? Qin Shuhua's heart was in turmoil. Just as she was about to say something, the sound of footsteps came from behind. It was accompanied by the sound of an old man staggering with the help of a walking stick. Everyone turned to look. Old Captain Li had a head full of white hair. His face was frail, but he looked energetic. He walked over slowly. Li Jinan quickly stood up and went forward to support him. What are you talking about? Old Captain Li walked over slowly. His old, murky eyes swept over them. Qin Shuhua stood up and poured a cup of tea for old Captain Li. With reddened eyes, she called out, "Dad, you're here." Old Captain Li's attention was drawn to her hand. He asked, "What's this?" "Pregnancy report. Grandpa, Yuyu is pregnant." When old Captain Li heard that, his face immediately darkened. He reached out to take it. After looking it over, he slammed the pregnancy report on the table and exclaimed, "What a scandal. You're not even married yet, and you're already pregnant." Li Jinan lowered his head and coughed. "She's young after all. If I'm not careful, I might accidentally, you scoundrel." Old Captain Li clenched his teeth and raised his walking stick as if he was about to hit him. Qin Shuhua was shocked. She quickly held him and said, "Dad, don't be angry. I'll teach this kid a lesson. You should get some rest." "Rest? How can I possibly rest at a time like this?" Old Captain Li's face darkened. In a low voice, he said, "Why didn't you tell me about such an important matter?" Qin Shuhua nodded her head and breathed a sigh of relief. Li Xiao hadn't expressed any opinion on the matter. If old Captain Li had known about it, he would have been the same as her and wouldn't have allowed that woman to marry into his family. However, before Qin Shuhua could relax, Captain Sheng's next words shattered her heart. "Brat, when are you going to bring your parents to the lass's house to place the betrothal gifts? Since she's already pregnant, we can't delay this any longer. If you can wait, can your child wait?" Qin Shuhua almost choked on her own saliva. When Yi Yuyu and Li Jinan heard old Captain Li's words, they couldn't help but smile. Of course. The faster, the better. "Grandpa, why don't you talk to my mom? She doesn't agree right now." "Don't agree?" As expected, the old man immediately turned his head and said, "How can you not agree? She's a young lady and she's a few years younger than your son. Do you want her to give birth to your son's child without a title?" "That's right. That's not good," Li Jinan said indignantly. However, as soon as he met Qin Shuhua's gaze, he immediately turned his head away. Qin Shuhua could tell that the kid was trying to use old Captain Li to intimidate her. He was using the old man to pressure her. Realizing her son's motive, Qin Shuhua was a little angry and said, "Dad, you have no idea why I don't agree." Chapter 1672. Qin Shuhua hadn't expected Captain Li to already know about it. Shocked, she exclaimed in disbelief, "Dad, she's been with another man. How could you be so open about it?" But, the girl was right in front of her, so Qin Shuhua couldn't be too direct with her words. Just as she was about to speak, she changed her mind and said, "The girl isn't bad, but our Li family is innocent. The girl has a criminal record." Criminal record? Grandpa Sheng didn't know about this. He looked at Li Jinan with a serious expression. Li Jinan thought for a moment and cleared his throat to explain, "It's like this." Li Jinan told the story in full detail. Captain Li was silent. Qin Shuhua had heard Li Jinan tell the story a few times, so she was unmoved. When Li Jinan saw the expression on Qin Shuhua's face, he added, "In any case, the child is going to be born. Since it was all a misunderstanding, and Yu was only detained for a few days, look at how old this grandson is. If you don't want him, there will be retribution. Besides, your son is already so old. It wasn't easy for me to find someone I like. Are you willing to let me remain single again?" The children of the Li family had always been virtuous. None of the three brothers were the type to fool around outside. Qin Shuhua knew that Yi Yu had gotten pregnant because her son liked her. Seeing that her son was already so old, she couldn't bear for him to be single again. But, the girl's condition was really, Captain Li's expression darkened. He glared at his grandson and asked, "What did your father say?" "Dad said to listen to grandfather," Li Jinan said. Of course, that was what Li Jinan had said himself. Li Xiao would never have said something like that. When Captain Li saw that, he knew that the kid was going to rely on himself. With a huff, he waved his hand and said, "Get your father to send out the betrothal gifts. Hurry up and get married. The child can't wait." Yi Yu hadn't expected Captain Li to agree so readily. She was stunned. She looked up at him. Qin Shuhua wasn't happy and called out, "Dad, didn't you say to listen to me?" Captain Li took the initiative and looked at Qin Shuhua with a straight face. Qin Shuhua's expression was ugly as she said, "Dad." Old Master Li was even more displeased. "Liar, it's all fake." Qin Shuhua wanted to say something else, but Li Jinan interrupted her. Li Jinan looked very happy. He smiled and said, "Thank you, Grandpa." Yi Yu felt a little uneasy. She instinctively glanced at Qin Shuhua. He realized that Qin Shuhua was also looking at him with an indescribably complicated gaze. Yi Yu jumped in fright. She didn't dare to look anymore. She quickly lowered her head. "Take it out," Li Jinan said softly as he looked at her. Yi Yu blinked her eyes in disbelief and replied, "I don't think that's a good idea." Li Jinan immediately took matters into his own hands. He took Yi Yu's handbag over and quickly retrieved two small red booklets. The words, "Marriage Certificate," were printed in gold, making Qin Shuhua stomp her feet in anger. He stood up, turned around, and walked towards his room. It was obvious that he was very unhappy. "Humph, you're quite fast." The old man flipped through the marriage certificate and said, "You've made your mother very angry." Chapter 1673. In the end, she still fell in love with her. Indeed, Li Jinnan's words came true. When Qin Shuhua was bedridden, Yi Yu took care of her even though she was pregnant. Because of this, they became a complete family. Of course, that was a story for another time. Summer in Yuntown was much more pleasant than in Kingstown. Yi Qianqian stretched lazily and yawned. She dragged her slippers outside to water the plants. The flowers in the yard were in full bloom in the early morning. They were beautiful. Yi Qianqian's eyes were sleepy, and her shorts and top were wrinkled. Yi Zhenhua had just returned from outside. When he saw his daughter's lazy look, he laughed. "What are you doing? Your grandfather is going to laugh at you again. Grandfather likes to laugh. He's not laughing at me. Don't accuse me wrongly." Yi Qianqian yawned again and said, "Dad, why are you growing so many flowers for no reason? They're not pretty, and they smell awful." "How are they not pretty? What's with that look in your eyes?" Yi Zhenhua was indignant. "When Yu came back, she said they were pretty. Look at this rose. Look at this jasmine. Look at how beautiful they are. They're not pretty, and they smell awful." Yi Qianqian waved her hand in disdain. "It's too troublesome to water them like this every day. Do you not want to water them? If not, get lost." Yi Qianqian immediately perked up. She handed the watering bottle to Yi Zhenhua and said, "Dad, your flowers are super beautiful. I'm going to play." "Hey, have you had breakfast?" "Nope." Yi Qianqian walked into her room and changed into a fresh set of clothes before skipping out the door. The air in her hometown is so fresh. She went to her best friend Fang Tongtong's place, but she was nowhere to be seen. Yi Qianqian shouted, "Big Head Tong! Big Head Tong, are you there? Big Head Tong! Big Head Tong! What are you shouting for? What are you shouting for? Wake up!" A young girl's voice came from inside. Following that, a girl walked out from inside. Fang Tongtong was Yi Qianqian's classmate. They were of the same age, but Yi Qianqian had gone to Kingstown to work, while Fang Tongtong was the classic, dependent on her parents. She couldn't bear to leave her parents, so she opened a small shop in her hometown. The business wasn't good, but it was enough to earn enough money to feed herself. When Fang Tongtong saw Yi Qianqian, her face darkened. Yi Qianqian shrank back and immediately said warily, "Sir, please wait. Great hero, you've been annoyed by soul call. Hey, great hero, you're a great person and don't hold a grudge against a lowly person like me." Fang Tongtong wanted to strangle her to death. "How dare you ask for ice cream? Go! Fang Qianqian! Fang!" Yi Qianqian grabbed the most expensive popsicle and stuffed it into her mouth. When Fang Tongtong saw that, she immediately chased after her. However, Yi Qianqian had already dashed outside. She looked over with a smile and licked her ice cream contentedly. It was Fang Fang Fang. It was Yu Fang Ming. He, Fu Ming. It was Fang Tongtong's first time seeing such a coquettish color. She watched as the car slowly headed toward her shop. It was obvious that it was a business visit. He pointed at Yi Qianqian and said, "I'll deal with you later." However, the flashy yellow car stopped, and soon, a handsome face that shone with golden light appeared. Fang Tongtong's eyes lit up. The man got out of the car. He had a tall figure and was dressed neatly. He looked immaculately dressed and had an outstanding demeanor. Fang Tongtong's eyes lit up. She felt as if her heart had been shot by Cupid. Is this the legendary Prince Charming? Yi Qianqian almost spat out her ice cream. She stared at the man as if she had seen a ghost. Chapter 1674. Shengjilie was dressed in a neat and clean white shirt, which accentuated his strong and healthy body. His dark pants made his legs look especially long and slender. His hair had obviously been trimmed compared to the day before. Did this guy dress up on purpose? Where did this car come from? It's such a flashy yellow color, and the car model looks like a Maserati? Yi Qianqian's eyes widened as she looked at the car from afar. She could vaguely guess what he was here for. Why would an ordinary person come to such a remote and desolate place for no reason? He was obviously not here with good intentions. Shengjilie did not notice Yi Qianqian, who was nibbling on her ice cream behind him. He got out of the car and glanced at the little shop before he asked, "Excuse me, do you know Yi Qianqian?" Fang Tongtong's eyes were initially shining, but when she heard his question, she was dumbfounded. Subconsciously, Fang Tongtong glanced at Yi Qianqian, who was behind him. Yi Qianqian did not hear him speak, but when she saw him look over, she immediately had an ominous feeling. "Why are you looking for Yi Qianqian?" Fang Tongtong glanced at the obviously flashy luxury car behind Shengjilie. She suddenly felt a little strange. Such a flashy car would cost at least 1 or 2 million. Did that girl, Yi Qianqian, hook up with a rich man? When Shengjilie saw Fang Tongtong's reaction, he knew that she definitely knew Yi Qianqian. He said, "I'm her boyfriend." D***mn, that can't be. Fang Tongtong could not believe it. Her jaw almost dropped. She looked Shengjilie up and down and said, "That can't be, handsome. Are you blind? How could you fall for someone like Yi Qianqian? F***ck, what's wrong with this world?" Fang Tongtong's voice was not soft, so Yi Qianqian heard her immediately. She was speechless and almost threw her ice cream at her. When Shengjilie heard Fang Tongtong's words, he chuckled and asked, "Do you know her?" "I don't just know her. I'm her best friend. We've been in the same boat since elementary school and university. To put it bluntly, I even know how many strands of hair she has on her body." "Nonsense. You talk too much. Why don't you F***king count for me?" Yi Qianqian couldn't take it anymore. She walked over with the ice cream in her hand. Shengjilie was surprised to see Yi Qianqian, but he quickly broke into a smile and said, "So, you're here. Is he really your boyfriend?" "Yi Qianqian, that can't be. How could you not tell me about something so important?" Fang Tongtong was a little angry. She reached out and pinched Yi Qianqian on the cheek. When Yi Qianqian was pinched, she howled in pain and said, "Can't you be more like a woman? How can you get physical at the slightest disagreement?" She slapped Fang Tongtong's hand away and looked at Shengjilie. She asked, "Why are you here?" "I missed you, so I came." Shengilie's words came from the bottom of his heart. He gazed at Yi Qianqian with eyes full of tenderness and sweetness. Yi Qianqian blushed. Before she could say anything, Fang Tongtong mocked her mercilessly, "Oh my, the sour smell of love. The single dog is still here." More importantly, her Prince Charming was a lost cause. It was said that one shouldn't tease a friend's wife, so he had no choice but to let her have this brat. Chapter 1675. Tui. Fang Tongtong, you're shameless. Are you trying to kill my man? Yi Qianqian reached out and slapped her across the face. She didn't notice that when the man behind her heard the words, "my man," his eyes darkened slightly and the corners of his mouth lifted imperceptibly. "My man," Yi Qianqian said casually. Fang Tongtong dodged with a giggle and said, "It wasn't easy for a big shot to show up. How could I turn down a business opportunity? Don't worry, the price is definitely affordable. Go away, my father doesn't smoke, and he doesn't drink much. It's not like you don't know. Just give up." "Hey, you can't put it that way. It's your father's business whether he eats it or not, but it's your business whether you buy it or not. Am I right, young man?" Fang Tongtong tried to drum up business with a straight face and even put on an expression that said, "I'm doing this for your own good." Then, he seemed to have thought of something and said, "I still don't know your name." "Shengjilie." Yi Qianqian answered quickly. "Oh. Fang Tongtong gave him a thumbs up with a straight face and said, "You're cultured and know the greatness of martyrs. Good name. Shunjilia." Pfft. It was the first time Yi Qianqian had heard someone interpret it that way. She burst out laughing. Shunjilia couldn't help but laugh, revealing his pearly white teeth. Under the sunlight, it was impossible to look away. Shunjilia explained, the "ji" in "ji" means cold. Ah. I see. Fang Tongtong nodded her head. Then, do you want to buy cigarettes? Huh, give me two. Shunjilia glanced at the cigarette cabinet. Which brand is good? When Yi Qianqian heard that he really wanted to buy it, she slapped his hand and said, "Go away. Don't listen to her. My father doesn't smoke, but it's fine to keep a few bottles of wine at home. Your father doesn't smoke, but your man does, right?" Fang Tongtong looked at Shunjilia with anticipation. "He's a doctor." "Smoke my ass." Fang Tongtong's eyes lit up. "Wow, I thought you were a rich second-generation heir. I didn't expect you to be a doctor." "Ah. Yi Qianqian, where did you pick him up from? Why are you able to meet blind people, but I haven't met a single one?" "Screw you. Do you still want to do business? Give me a bottle of Maotai." "Only one bottle?" "Of course. Give me another bottle. It's your man who's paying anyway, right, young man?" Shunjilia smiled and nodded his head. Yi Qianqian gave him a displeased look. He reached out and placed his hand on her waist to comfort her. He whispered, "It's the first time you're meeting your father. You should bring something your father likes." "My dad likes flowers." "Did you bring any flowers?" Shunjilia replied, "Well, I really don't have that." "Isn't that the end of it? Hurry back to Kingstown then. Don't see my father. My father doesn't want to see you." Yi Qianqian heaved a sigh of relief and waved her hand. "You didn't even bring me flowers. What's the point of seeing him? Hey, how can you bring flowers to meet your elders?" Fang Tongtong put down the 2 bottles of wine. "Shun, don't listen to her. She probably doesn't want you to meet her father. She's just teasing you." Of course, Shunjilia knew that she didn't want him to see her. His smile deepened as he said, "It's fine. Since you're already here, there's no reason for me to not see you." Yes. Fang Tongtong urged with a smile. She even told Shunjilia about Yi Zhenhua's hobbies. Shunjilia agreed with a smile. After paying the bill, he placed the wine in the car. Although it was close to home, he would be a fool not to take the car when it was available. Chapter 1676. They had only confirmed their relationship for less than half a month. Wouldn't it be too soon to meet his parents? "Did you think I came here just to take my new car for a spin?" Shunjilia started the car and glanced at her with a half-smile. There was no trace of that gentle smile on his face. When she saw his true colors, Yi Qianqian snorted. She suddenly remembered and said, "That's right. When did you buy that car? It's such an expensive Maserati." "Your family bought it for you?" "Of course I bought it myself. Hey, I didn't save up all these years for nothing." Shunjilia caressed the steering wheel lovingly and said, "I've wanted to buy this car for a long time. I started ordering it before the new year, but I only managed to get my hands on it now. You must be sick in the head to buy such an expensive car. The maintenance fees for cars in the city are very high. If it gets scratched, just the cost of repainting it will cost you a lot." Yi Qianqian looked at the car logo. Although she sounded annoyed, she still felt a little smug. This was a luxury car. Maserati. When he thought of Fang Tongtong's envious and jealous gaze, he felt secretly pleased. When Shunjilia heard Yi Qianqian's muttering, he frowned and thought about it seriously for a moment before replying, "That's right. What do I do? I've already bought it. Buy it and open it. Yi Qianqian wasn't in a good mood, but she quickly said, why didn't you tell me you were coming? It wasn't easy for me to take my annual leave to accompany my father, but you still came to scare me. Do you know that I was scared to death? I wasn't prepared at all. What are you afraid of? It's not like I'll eat your father. Turn left and stop by the tree. All right. Shenjilia leaned over to stop, but Yi Qianqian immediately said, forget it. Don't stop here. There are many children here. It'll be terrible if you get scratched. Shenjilia didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He replied, it's fine. No, drive inside. It's safer there. Shenjilia had no choice but to do as he was told. He parked the car, got out, and opened the back seat door. Come and give me a hand, Shenjilia called Yi Qianqian over. When Yi Qianqian got to the back, she was dumbfounded. There were all kinds of precious herbs and tonics, and there were 4 or 5 boxes of ginseng and lingzhi. There was also an expensive gift box with the words Yellow Crane Tower written on it. Yellow Crane Tower, should be smoke, right? Just by looking at the packaging, one could tell that it was better than all the cigarettes sold in Fang Tongtong's shop. There was also a bottle of tonic wine. In addition to the 2 bottles he just bought from Fang Tongtong, he had a total of 3 bottles of wine. Tobacco, alcohol, and tonics were all available. Are you crazy? You bought so many things. Yi Qianqian felt her heart ache. Oh my God, you should have told me before you bought it. It's such a waste. The value of these items was not low. How much money would that cost? Her monthly salary was only a few thousand yuan. With a rough glance, she was afraid that even 2 months of her salary would not be enough to buy these things. Aren't we meeting your father now? Don't embarrass yourself. When Shenjilia saw Yi Qianqian's reaction, he hugged her with the hand that was holding the box and said, I'm going to bring his daughter home. What if I embarrass him and he refuses to let you marry me? Yi Qianqian's face burned. She pushed him away and said, go away. Who wants to marry you? You're shameless. If you don't marry me, who are you going to marry? Shenjilia bent over and kissed her on the cheek. Marriage is only a matter of time. Chapter 1677. But had their feelings for each other reached that point? Not at all. They had only been together for less than half a month since that night. Why did he insist on marrying her? Wait. Shenjilia was in such a hurry. Did he have something he couldn't tell her? The more Yi Qianqian thought about it, the more she felt that something was amiss. She tugged at him and said, Shenjilia. Yes? Shenjilia saw the suspicion on her face and raised his eyebrows slightly. Yi Qianqian said, I still think it's too much of a rush. Let's not go. I don't think it's a good idea. I'm already here. Shenjilia nudged her gently and said, actually, I'm mainly here to see you. I miss you. Yi Qianqian's face burned again. She had just returned from Kingstown yesterday. It had only been less than 2 days. How could she miss him already? Since I came to see you in your hometown, your father and grandfather must be at home. How could I not bring a gift? There's nothing wrong with that, okay. Let's go. Shenjilia turned to leave. But Yi Qianqian still felt that something was wrong. She tugged at his sleeve and said, hey, wait a minute. I'm asking you. Shenjilia paused and raised the things in his hands helplessly. Sister, these things are very heavy. The sun is so bright. Are you trying to tire me to death? If you're tired to death at this level, then you're too useless. Yi Qianqian looked at him with disdain. She thought about it and said, Shenjilia, have you ever had a girlfriend before? How could she ask such a question at such a time? Shunjilia felt that something was wrong. He looked at Yi Qianqian and said, I'm already 27 years old. Would you believe me if I said that I've never had a girlfriend? I don't believe you. That's right. Then, did your previous girlfriends also meet their parents after half a month? Yi Qianqian's words were awkward. She was afraid that Shunjilia would hit her. Half a month? Shunjilia calculated strangely. It really was half a month. Yi Qianqian was speechless. Are you afraid that I'll go around flirting? Shunjilia chuckled and said, Don't worry. My previous girlfriends were just for fun. I had no intention of spending much time with them. Of course, I wouldn't meet their parents. What he meant was that he wanted to be with Yi Qianqian for a long time. Yi Qianqian was touched and asked, Is that so? Of course. Shunjilia glanced at her and said, Although you're not as pretty as them, and your figure isn't as good as theirs, it's still acceptable. Yi Qianqian's face darkened. She stomped her foot and gritted her teeth. Shunjilia. Cough cough. Let's go. Yi Qianqian was so angry that she twisted his hand, but she quickly stomped her feet in the direction of her home. Yi Zhenhua was playing with the old man, and the door was open. The flowers in the courtyard were in full bloom and their fragrance wafted through the air. When Yi Zhenhua saw his daughter come back with such a big man, he was stunned for a moment and asked, Qianqian, who is this? Yi Qianqian replied angrily, I picked it up along the way. Huh? Yi Zhenhua didn't understand. Shunjilia stepped forward and said, Hello, uncle. I'm Shunjilia, Qianqian's boyfriend. Qianqian's boyfriend? Yi Zhenhua was stunned. When did Qianqian get a boyfriend? Why didn't you tell me? He asked as he looked at Yi Qianqian. I forgot, Yi Qianqian replied casually. I'll go get the tea set. Chapter 1678. When he saw the thing Shunjilia was carrying, he exclaimed, It's fine as long as you're here. Why did you bring so many things? Put them down. They're heavy. I heard that you have a grandfather, so I brought some tonics. Qianqian said that you're very good at cooking. You can make some for him when you have time. Shunjilia put down the things and said, I didn't know what you liked, so I brought some cigarettes and alcohol. Did you tell Qianqian before you came? Yi Zhenhua asked in a low voice. She looked unhappy. You must have offended her. Shunjilia felt a little embarrassed when he heard that. He thought for a moment and said, I didn't tell her, mainly because I was afraid that she wouldn't let me come. I've wanted to visit for a long time, but I couldn't find the opportunity. Yi Zhenhua was sure that was the case. But this girl never mentioned you to me. If you hadn't come, I wouldn't have known that my daughter had a girlfriend. Yi Zhenhua helped him put down the things and asked, What's your name? Judging from your accent, you seem to be from the north, right? Uncle, my name is Shunjilia. I'm from the capital, and I'm currently working in Kingstown. When Yi Zhenhua heard that he was from the capital, his expression became a little strange. He asked, You're from the capital? Yes, uncle. What kind of work are you doing? I'm a doctor. I'm currently the deputy director of the Department of Psychology. Yi Zhenhua nodded. He looked at Shunjilia's appearance and figure, and his frown deepened. Shunjilia looked at Yi Zhenhua's expression and asked carefully, Uncle, if you have any questions, you can ask me directly. Yi Zhenhua hesitated for a moment before saying, Shun, how old are you? You're such a good person. 27. 27 years old? What a promising young man. You're tall and handsome, and you're such a good person. There aren't many young people like you these days. Shunjilia was used to being praised since he was a child. When he heard Yi Zhenhua's words, he smiled and said, You flatter me. You're such a good person. Why did you fall for our Qianqian? Yi Zhenhua looked at Shunjilia with obvious confusion on his face. As soon as Yi Zhenhua finished speaking, Yi Qianqian's dissatisfied voice came from behind. "Daddy, what do you mean by that?" He turned around and saw Yi Qianqian carrying a freshly sterilized tea set with both hands. The coffee table was placed on the log table in the courtyard. Yi Qianqian looked at Yi Zhenhua with displeasure. Yi Zhenhua coughed softly and said, "Qianqian, didn't Daddy say that you are not good enough?" It was just that Dr. Shen's qualifications were too good. Under such a contrast, their Qianqian seemed a little ordinary. Just the fact that he was from the imperial capital was enough to make many girls break their heads to pursue him. Moreover, this young man was very good-looking. He was already a director at such a young age. If he was given a few more years, wouldn't his future be even more boundless? However, Yi Zhenhua didn't say those words aloud. Instead, he glanced at Shenjilia and said, "Why didn't you tell me that you had a boyfriend? If your boyfriend hadn't come knocking on my door, how long would you have planned to hide it from me?" Chapter 1679. When will the time be right? "You should tell Dad as soon as you have a boyfriend," Yi Zhenhua complained. As he spoke, he looked at Shenjilia. The more he looked at him, the more he found the young man to be handsome. He was handsome, with thick eyebrows and big eyes. His lips were red and his teeth were white. He had a straight nose. One look at his face and you could tell that he was destined to be rich and powerful. But, how did he end up with my daughter? That won't do. What if we break up? Yi Qianqian brewed tea. We haven't even gotten married yet. We haven't been together for long. Yi Qianqian's words were a little direct. Shenjilia felt a little embarrassed in front of her father. He interrupted, "How can you think that way? Since I'm with you, I want to be with you. Why would we break up? Don't think too much about it." "Damn it. Can't I dislike you?" Yi Qianqian couldn't accept it. They had only been together for less than half a month, and he was already meeting her parents. What was the rush? Was he afraid that she would run away? Humph. Or was he the same way with his previous girlfriends? Every single one he caught was one. That was too much. "What do you dislike about me? I'll change, all right?" Shenjilia took a small stool and sat down beside Yi Qianqian. Yi Qianqian was holding a teacup with a pair of tongs. When she heard that, her hands suddenly trembled, and the cup almost fell. The boiling water on it spilled. Shenjilia immediately put his hand in front of Yi Qianqian and said, "Be careful." Fortunately, the boiling water didn't spill. Yi Qianqian's face gradually burned. She pushed his hand away and continued to wash the teacup. Yi Zhenhua saw it all. Shenjilia's attitude toward Yi Qianqian was very clear. From the looks of it, he was indeed treating Yi Qianqian well. "Shen, who else is there in your family?" "My parents, grandmother, and brother." "You're already 27. Your brother should be a little older than you. Is he still married?" Shenjilia was a little embarrassed. He suddenly remembered that Shen Luo's previous wife was Yi Qianqian's younger sister. And she was his biological sister. After thinking about it, he vaguely said, "Yes. They're married." "I see." Yi Zhenhua nodded and suddenly looked at Yi Qianqian. "Qianqian, what do you want for dinner?" "Anything." "What do you mean by anything?" "Anything is fine." "I'm fine with anything." "What about you, Shen?" "Me too, uncle. I'm not a picky eater, but it's rare for me to be here today. Let me cook dinner." Shenjilia smiled brightly, and under the bright sunshine, he looked even more radiant. Yi Zhenhua was even more surprised. "You know how to cook?" "I can make some home-cooked dishes, but I don't know if they suit your taste." "No, don't do it." Yi Qianqian had a look of disdain on her face. "My dad's cooking is still the best." You make the same few dishes every day. If it's not shredded pork with garlic sauce, it's eggplant with garlic sauce. If it's not steamed eggs, it's stewed eggs with minced meat. I'm about to throw up. You're sick of eating it, but your father hasn't eaten it before. Let your father have a taste of my cooking. Otherwise, how will he know if I'll be able to take care of you in the future? Shenjilie spoke matter-of-factly. He reached out and pulled her against his chest. Yi Qianqian had a look of disdain on her face as she replied, "Come on. Do I still need you to take care of me? What else? Are you going to take care of me? You can't even take care of yourself." *T. I've survived for so many years. It's only when you appear that I can't live in peace. Chapter 1680. Yi Qianqian pushed his hand away in disgust and said, "If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have fallen." If she hadn't fallen, she wouldn't have delayed her visa to Venice. Since the visa was not approved, the 5-day and 6-night ticket was equivalent to being invalidated. Yi Qianqian was so angry that she vented her anger everywhere for several days. How can you blame me for that? I couldn't do anything about the blackout. Besides, you were the only one in there. Who knows what you were doing in there that caused you to fall? Shenjilie had an innocent look on his face. He placed his hand across her neck and pulled her against his chest. Yi Qianqian's body appeared exceptionally petite in front of him. Even when she struggled, it was as if she was as light as a feather. How dare you accuse me first? It was you who harassed me outside that caused me to fall. It's all your fault. You should have taken care of me later. Shenjilie felt a little helpless and said, "How could you do this to me? How could you accuse me in front of your father? Why don't you tell your father how you usually treat me? Look at my hands. They're all bruised. You were the one who pinched me. You deserve it." Yi Qianqian roared. Only then did she realize what kind of attitude she was in. Half nestled in Shenjilie's arms, she looked like a helpless little bird. She was shocked and looked at Yi Zhenhua. Yi Zhenhua's expression was a little complicated. He looked at them and asked, "Are you all living together?" "Yeah." "No." The two of them looked at Yi Zhenhua in unison. Yi Zhenhua knew that there was something going on. He snorted and asked, "How long has it been?" "It's been a while," Shenjilie said. "Bah, of course not. Dad, don't listen to him. We're living together, but it's a landlord-tenant relationship. He's in charge of cooking, and I provide him with a place to stay. That's all. You're working in Kingstown and you're still doing this kind of shady business." Yi Zhenhua's words made Yi Qianqian speechless. She retorted, "What do you mean by such a shady business? It's not like I'm cheating or anything. What did you eat before Shen didn't cook for you? Let's go eat outside. There's a lot of fast food there." Yi Zhenhua's face was full of dissatisfaction as he said, "No wonder you've lost so much weight. You've become a little rounder recently. Little Shen's cooking skills should be pretty good." "No, Dad, I'm begging you. Don't let him cook. I'm going to throw up." Yi Qianqian looked at him pitifully. "Look at you. How can you let a guest cook?" "Of course, I'll do it." Yi Zhenhua picked up his teacup and took a sip. "But you guys can go grocery shopping tonight. Your grandfather and I will wait for you at home." "Ah, no, it's so hot, leave it to us, uncle." Shenjilie held her in his arms and smiled brightly. Shenjilie chatted with Yi Zhenhua for the rest of the afternoon. Yi Qianqian hadn't expected Shenjilie to be so knowledgeable. When Yi Zhenhua had nothing to do, he liked to study history. Shenjilie had some understanding of almost every event that Yi Zhenhua talked about. The two of them felt like old friends at first sight and chatted happily. Yi Qianqian was speechless. She couldn't get a word in edgewise. They finally chatted until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Yi Qianqian said, "Let's go. Aren't we going grocery shopping?" "Let's go grocery shopping." Yi Zhenhua was still a little reluctant to leave, but he could tell that Yi Qianqian was bored to death. He waved his hand and said, "Go on." Now that she was free, Yi Qianqian pulled Shenjilia and ran out. When they were some distance away, Shenjilia pulled her back and kissed her on the lips. Yi Qianqian was stunned. She looked up at him. Chapter 1681. Shenjilia's eyes were sparkling, as if they were glistening. Under the sunlight, his eyes shone even brighter. Yi Qianqian stared at him for a moment, but she quickly averted her eyes. Her cheeks were slightly red as she replied, "Not bad. From your expression, it doesn't look like it." Shenjilia pulled her into an alley and asked in a low voice, "Isn't it great? TSK. How would you know such a mess of unofficial history? You even had such a good time talking to my father. I couldn't even get a word in. Didn't you say that your father likes to study history? I paid special attention to it and crammed some knowledge. I didn't expect it to really come in handy." Yi Qianqian was surprised. "When did I say that?" "You did." Shenjilia was very sure. "You said it the last time, and I remembered it." "Is that so?" "I forgot." Yi Qianqian really didn't remember, but she quickly pulled him back and said, "It's so hot. Let's go back after we buy the groceries." "What's the hurry?" "Wait a minute." Shenjilia held her hand and pulled her closer. "Kiss me. Kiss my ass. You're covered in sweat, my ass." Shenjilia acted as if he didn't hear her protest. He pulled her closer and kissed her on the lips. Yi Qianqian's face turned even redder. She pushed him away forcefully and said, "Go away. Kiss me again." "Don't go." Yi Qianqian ignored him and turned to leave. When they arrived at the market, there weren't many people who recognized Yi Qianqian, but there were still quite a few. The place was small, and most of the people were working outside. There weren't many good-looking people in the whole year. When they saw Shenjilia, everyone's eyes were fixed on him. They looked at Yi Qianqian with envy and whispered, "Ah! He's so tall and handsome. He's so fair. He's practically a Prince Charming. That girl looks so familiar. Who does she look like?" Yi Qianqian and Shenjilia were choosing vegetables when a girl suddenly walked over and gently patted Yi Qianqian on the shoulder. Yi Qianqian turned her head and found the girl familiar, but she couldn't recognize who she was. When the girl saw Yi Qianqian's face, she exclaimed in surprise, "It's really you, Qianqian. I'm Yilin, your middle school classmate. Do you remember me?" Yi Qianqian stared at it for a long time before she vaguely remembered someone. Xia Yilin dropped out of junior high school before she even finished it. Rumor had it that she did all sorts of weird jobs and was considered a celebrity in town. Fang Tongtong often gossiped about her. "Ah, long time no see." Xia Yilin was delighted to see that she had finally remembered her. She looked at Shenjilia and asked, "Is this your boyfriend? Why do I remember that it wasn't him I saw last time? Did it change again?" Yi Qianqian didn't know how to react. She asked, "When have I ever brought a boyfriend home? Don't lie to me. I saw it all. The man you brought with you last time was wearing black clothes. He was tall and handsome, and he drove a black Bentley. He was awesome." With a look of envy on her face, she continued, "It must be nice to go to the big city for a few years. Even your boyfriends are so awesome. What do you do for a living? Introduce me to him." Yi Qianqian was even more baffled. "What the hell? How could I have a boyfriend who drives a Bentley? Why would I change to him?" Shenjilia felt inexplicably implicated. He looked at her with an aggrieved expression. Chapter 1682. Yi Qianqian was amused. She looked at Xia Yilan, who had inexplicably come to seek attention. She crossed her arms over her chest and said, "Why do your words sound so sour to me? What are you trying to do?" Xia Yilan hadn't expected Yi Qianqian to be so direct. Awkwardness flashed across her face as she replied, "What's there to be sour about? Aren't we all classmates? We haven't seen each other for so long, and you're doing so well now. Aren't I just envious of you?" Ouch! Yi Qianqian quickly waved her hands. Don't be envious of me. I'm not doing well either. Hey, I'm buying groceries. Let's talk later. After Yi Qianqian finished speaking, she pulled Shenjilie along and turned to leave. When Xia Yilan realized what was going on, she quickly chased after Yi Qianqian and yelled, "Yi Qianqian, don't tell me you're feeling guilty? Why are you running away for no reason?" Yi Qianqian was about to leave, but she stopped in her tracks. When he turned his head, he saw the smug smile on Xia Yilan's face. When Yi Qianqian saw her expression, she laughed and said, "What are you feeling guilty about? Why don't you tell me what I'm feeling guilty about?" When Xia Yilan spoke, she didn't look at Yi Qianqian. Instead, she looked at Shenjilie and said, "Just now, you didn't dare to admit that you brought a boyfriend home. Don't tell me your boyfriend doesn't know that you brought a boyfriend home? Each boyfriend you seduce is richer than the last. What kind of tricks do you use?" The more Xia Yilan spoke, the more bitter her tone became. The surrounding people could tell that Xia Yilan was trying to stir up trouble, but no one said anything to stop her. They were happy to watch the show. Yi Qianqian suddenly burst out laughing and said, "That's right. I have my ways. I'm amazing. I can seduce men. What can you do about it?" Xia Yilan had expected that Yi Qianqian would try her best to deny it or try to avoid the topic and change the subject. However, she had never expected that Yi Qianqian would have such an attitude. His expression turned ugly in an instant. Xia Yilan stomped her foot in anger and exclaimed, "How can you be so shameless? How can it be that I'm shameless? Aren't you trying to frame me? Now that I've admitted it, you're saying that I'm shameless? Why are you so annoying?" Yi Qianqian had lived for a long time. She spread her hands and made an expression of disbelief at the onlookers. "Have you ever seen such a person? He's so weird." Xia Yilan was rendered speechless. She glared at Shenjilie angrily and said, "I'm telling the truth. She really did bring a boyfriend home in the past. It hasn't even been a few months, and she's already brought another one back. She's definitely using you as a spare tire." "That's right, that goes without saying." With her hands on her hips, Yi Qianqian looked like a shrew. "I'm so refined, cultured, and good-looking. There are so many people pursuing me that the queue would stretch from here all the way to Kingstown. What's wrong with having a few spare tires? What's wrong with that?" Yi Qianqian's words made the people around her unable to contain their laughter. Shenjilie was on the verge of collapsing from trying to stifle his laughter. His shoulders trembled as he pulled Yi Qianqian back. Chapter 1683. Xia Yilan was about to lose her mind when she was scolded in front of everyone. The weather was hot, and there were many people in the market. The people who came and went surrounded them. When they heard Yi Qianqian's words, they all chuckled. Xia Yilan's face turned red and purple. She stomped her feet in anger and shouted, "Yi Qianqian, don't go overboard. You think you're so great just because your boyfriend is here? Hey, you're being unreasonable. When did my boyfriend bully you? Who's as shameless as you? Why do you keep coming up to me for no reason? Let me tell you, I don't even know your surname. Who would know you? You saw that I have a handsome and rich boyfriend, so you wanted to get close to me and cheat on me, didn't you?" Xia Yilan's expression turned even uglier. You what? Why don't you take a look at yourself in the mirror? My man isn't blind. Yi Qianqian sneered. She held Shenjilia's arm and said coquettishly, darling, let's go. Let's ignore her. Shenjilia felt goosebumps rise all over his body when he heard the word darling. But it was still in public, so he had to go through with the act. Shenjilia put his arm around her and said, yeah. Let's go. Let's ignore people who are looking for trouble. Xia Yilan was furious and said, it's such a hot day. Don't you find it hot? Yi Qianqian and Shenjilia pretended not to hear her and walked further and further away. After the main character left, the audience quickly dispersed. Along the way, Yi Qianqian bought groceries. Many people looked at her. Yi Qianqian didn't care about them. After she bought the groceries, she quickly returned home with Shenjilia. They bought a lot of groceries, and the two of them carried them home together. Of course, the bulk of it was in Shenjilia's hands. As Yi Qianqian walked, she muttered, D****. I've never met such a weirdo in my life. She caught a man with a boyfriend on the street and slandered him. She's crazy. You've really never had a boyfriend before? Shenjilia took 2 steps forward and stood in front of her to look at her expression. When Yi Qianqian heard that, she stopped in her tracks and looked at Shenjilia's face. She stomped her foot angrily and yelled, I'll pass. I'll pass. Will that do? Shenjilia quickly caught up to her and said, hey, wait for me. Yi Qianqian stopped talking and walked faster and faster. When Shenjilia saw that she was really angry, he quickly admitted his mistake and said, I was wrong, madam. I believe you. That woman must have been lying to you. Yi Qianqian ignored him. Shenjilia stepped forward and said, my dear Qianqian, my dear wife, I was wrong. Yi Qianqian walked faster and faster, but the corners of her lips curled into a smile. In their minds, daughter-in-law equals wife. Shenjilia didn't casually address her as his wife. This was the first time he had done so. However, if she forgave him just like that, wouldn't it be too easy on him? Humph. No. Yi Qianqian still didn't look back. She even started jogging. Shenjilia had no choice but to unleash his ultimate attack. Did you think I came here just to see your father? When Yi Qianqian heard that, she stopped in her tracks. She turned around to look at Shenjilia with widened eyes and asked, what else do you want? When Shenjilia saw that Yi Qianqian had stopped, he finally breathed a sigh of relief. He caught up with her in a few steps and said, I've helped you with your visa. It's all done. Your passport is in my car. We're going to Venice the day after tomorrow. Chapter 1684. When Shenjilia heard that, he was overjoyed. Revealing a row of pearly white teeth, he said, if you knew, would it still be a surprise? Holy sh**t, really? Yi Qianqian jumped up. Oh my god. I thought I wouldn't be able to go. Ha ha ha. When Shenjilia saw her reaction, the smile on his face deepened. He asked, are you happy? Yi Qianqian was about to go crazy with joy. With 2 hands full of vegetables, she cupped Shenjilia's face and gave him a big kiss. She said, this is your reward. Ha. Go home. After the kiss, Yi Qianqian turned around and skipped in the direction of home. Shenjilia was stunned for a moment, but he quickly smiled. Looking at her back, he laughed out loud and followed her, shouting, you're acting like a hooligan. Yi Qianqian acted as if she hadn't heard him and shouted, we're going to Venice. Shenjilia felt a little smug. It seemed that he had done the right thing. Back home, Yi Zhenhua was chatting with his grandfather. His grandfather was smiling so much that his face was wrinkled. When he saw that Yi Qianqian had returned, he said, Qianqian, you're back. Yi Qianqian was in a great mood. She giggled and said, "You're back. Yo, why are you in such a good mood? Did you pick up a treasure?" Yi Zhenhua stood up and took the groceries they bought. Yi Qianqian burst out laughing and exclaimed, "I've picked up a treasure. Dad, I'm going back to Kingstown tomorrow. I'm going abroad the day after tomorrow." "Why are you going abroad? When will you be back?" "I'm going on vacation." "That's right. When will you be back?" Yi Qianqian looked at Shengjilie. "I applied for a visa for half a month," Shengjilie replied. Yi Qianqian was stunned and said, "But I only have a ticket for 5 days and 6 nights. Don't tell me you didn't use that ticket and paid for it?" "Clearly, yes." When he saw the expression on Yi Qianqian's face, he immediately changed his mind and said, "There's no conflict between a visa and a tourist voucher." When Yi Qianqian heard that, she calmed down and replied, "That's good. That's good. Are you guys going together?" Yi Zhenhua's expression was a little strange. Yi Qianqian didn't think there was anything wrong with that. As she tidied up the table, she said, "Yeah, we'll be able to keep each other company." "Oh, then how many rooms should I book?" Yi Zhenhua asked again. When Shengjilie heard that, he immediately perked up and looked at Yi Qianqian. When Yi Qianqian heard that, she looked over. When she saw the look of anticipation on Shengjielie's face, she blushed. Very quickly, she turned her head away and said, "Of course I'm going to book too. We're not going to sleep together, right?" Shengjilie felt Yi Zhenhua's gaze on him and immediately nodded his head. "Yes, yes." Humph, Yi Zhenhu walked towards the kitchen with the vegetables in his hand. However, his expression was somewhat indescribable. Yi Qianqian saw that Yi Zhenhua had left, and only she and Shengjilie were left in the living room. There was also an old man with dementia. This seemed a little awkward. Yi Qianqian glared at Shengjilie and said, "What are you looking at? Have you never seen a beautiful woman before?" Ouch! Shengjilie immediately turned his head away and covered his eyes. "It stings my eyes. I can't afford to offend him." When Yi Qianqian heard that, she immediately bent down to take off her shoes. Shengjilie immediately ran off and dashed into the courtyard. When Yi Qianqian saw that, the smile on her face widened. She was in a good mood and started humming a tune. When the old man saw Yi Qianqian's reaction, he chuckled and said, "Qianqian is happy today. Shengjilie is the most down-to-earth male lead I've ever written. Ha ha ha." Chapter 1685. Yi Qianqian's smile deepened as she replied, "Grandpa, I'm happy." Yi Zhenhua didn't say anything when he saw that. He turned into the kitchen to cook. She didn't know what Shengjilie was doing outside, but Yi Qianqian couldn't find him. In the end, Shengjilie came out on his own with a bag in his hand. The black bag looked like it belonged to her. "What's this?" "Something." "Nonsense." Yi Qianqian rolled her eyes at him in annoyance. She reached for it and quickly fished out a passport. She rummaged through it, but before she could take anything out, Shengjilie stopped her and said, "Stop looking. Go and help your father." "I can't help." "You go. Lazy woman." Shengjilie shoved the bag at her and turned to walk to the kitchen. Yi Qianqian made a face at him and immediately went into the room with the bag. She started rummaging through it. In the end, she found a pile of documents and a mess of certificates. Some of the names were so obscure that Yi Qianqian couldn't even understand them. She had no choice but to stuff everything back into the bag. Then, she collapsed on the bed and played with her phone. She went on Baidu and found a bunch of travel guides for Venice. From accommodation to sightseeing, Yi Qianqian found everything. Yi Zhenhua quickly finished cooking, but Yi Qianqian was still playing with her phone. When she went out, Shengjilie was wearing an apron, and Yi Zhenhua was responsible for bringing the dishes out. When Yi Qianqian saw that, she had a bad feeling about this. She asked, could it be that today's dishes were made by Shenjilia? When Yi Zhenhua heard that, he smiled and praised, you don't say. Your little boyfriend's cooking is really good. It looks, smells, and tastes good. Just from the looks alone, he's much better than your father's. No matter how good he is, he can't eat it every day. Yi Qianqian's face fell. She put her phone away and went forward to look around. She quickly perked up and said, these must be made by Dad. Yi Zhenhua nodded. I made them. You're already cooked. Of course. Yi Qianqian wanted to sit down as she spoke, but Shenjilia quickly stopped her and said, go wash your hands. Yi Qianqian pouted unhappily but quickly headed for the kitchen. After she washed her hands, she realized that Shenjilia had put in a lot of effort that day. The taste and appearance were more than twice as good as usual. Yi Qianqian noticed the small difference and glanced at Shenjilia. Shenjilia raised his eyebrows proudly and asked, what do you think? Not bad, not bad. It had been a long time since Yi Qianqian made fun of him. You can try something new in the future. All right. Yi Zhenhua glanced at them and chuckled. He then began to chat with Shenjilia. As he talked, he went on and on about Chiang Kai-shek during the Republic of China period. Yi Qianqian was bored out of her mind. After dinner, she chased them away from the table and went to wash the dishes. After washing the dishes, Yi Qianqian mopped the floor and cleaned the living room and kitchen. More than 2 hours had passed, and the two fellows still hadn't finished talking. Yi Qianqian took a shower and returned to her room to play with her cell phone. In her boredom, she began to watch television. Just like that, he lost track of time. It was around 1 in the morning when he felt sleepy. When he got out of bed and went out, it was already dark outside. His footsteps were light, and he could vaguely see a spark at the foot of the sofa. It was a mosquito coil. Chapter 1686. The sudden voice gave Yi Qianqian a fright. Her whole body trembled. She immediately reacted and growled in a low voice, you scared me to death. Shenjilia turned over from the sofa. His upper body was bare, and he looked very cool. He looked at Yi Qianqian and walked toward her with the light from his phone. Yi Qianqian stomped her feet and said, I'm going to the bathroom. I'm not going to talk to you. Okay. Yi Qianqian felt that the atmosphere was a little strange, and she felt a little uncomfortable. The surroundings were dark, and the lights were not on. There was a faint smell of mugwort in the air. It was quite pleasant. When she heard Shenjilia's response, Yi Qianqian used the light from her phone and walked toward the bathroom. After she went to the bathroom, she walked out and saw Shenjilia sitting on a stone bench in the yard. Yi Qianqian walked toward him and sat down beside him. Can't sleep? A little. Maybe a little excited. Shenjilia's voice was calm. He turned to look at Yi Qianqian. Your father seems to like me. Yi Qianqian felt even more uncomfortable when he mentioned that. She looked away and explained, this is the first time I've brought a boyfriend home. He would think it's good even if I brought a pig. You don't know how worried he is that I won't get married. He was so worried that he almost asked Fang Tongtong's mother to set me up on a blind date. As she spoke, she turned her head. The air in the small place was not overly polluted, and the moonlight on a summer night was especially bright. Under the hazy moonlight, Yi Qianqian clearly saw Shenjilia looking at her at that moment. Her heart skipped a beat. Yi Qianqian shrank back and coughed softly. Fang Tongtong is the girl you saw today. She's my best friend since I was young. She's my bestie. Yeah, I can see that you have a good relationship. Yes, but in recent years, we've been apart more than together. If it were in the past, we could have just fought. Shenjilia's lips curled up, and he responded in a low voice. His low voice was indescribably sexy. Yi Qianqian couldn't stand it anymore. Her heart seemed to be installed with a motor. It accelerated and couldn't stop. If this continued, she was afraid that she would suddenly die. Standing up, Yi Qianqian pretended to yawn and said, "I'm tired. We'll talk tomorrow. Go to sleep." Qianqian. Huh? Yi Qianqian looked down at him. He suddenly reached out and squeezed her hand. It was like a feather gently stroking the bottom of his heart. Yi Qianqian's face heated up even more. She looked at him and took a step back. What was he trying to do? Could it be that he wanted to kiss her? It's so late, it's pitch black, a man and a woman alone. As Yi Qianqian's mind continued to wander, Shunjilia suddenly let go of her hand. "Good night, I'll sit a little longer." "That's it? That's it?" Yi Qianqian suddenly felt unwell. That was it? Yi Qianqian heaved a sigh of relief. She didn't say a word. She turned around and strode toward her room. Damn, silly man. Her footsteps were a little heavy. Shunjilia stared at her back, and the smile on his face deepened. Then, she turned her head and looked at the moon above her head, her clear eyes filled with satisfaction. Yi Qianqian had no idea that she had fallen into Shunjilia's trap. Her heart felt empty. She lay down on the bed and pulled the blanket over her head. She stomped her foot on the bed angrily and almost went out to strangle him. Chapter 1687. However, Shunjilia's small action caused Yi Qianqian to suffer from insomnia for most of the night. When Yi Zhenhua woke her up, she was in a daze. "Qianqian, your boyfriend is still here. Get up for breakfast." Yi Qianqian covered her head and shouted, "I'm not eating. I want to sleep." Yi Zhenhua heard Yi Qianqian's voice from outside and chuckled helplessly. This child is already so big, yet she's still lazing in bed. It's okay. Let her sleep. We may be returning to Kingstown in a while. Let her sleep enough so that she won't get carsick. Don't spoil her too much. I know this girl all too well. She bullies the weak and fears the strong. If you treat her well, she'll be cocky. If you treat her fiercely, I guarantee that she won't have any temper." Shunjilia laughed. "I see. I'll try it next time." When Yi Zhenhua heard that, he felt that something was wrong. Was he teaching this outsider to bully his daughter? That wouldn't do. After thinking for a moment, he said, "But don't go overboard. This girl will hold a grudge. I won't give her a chance to hold a grudge." When Yi Zhenhua heard Shunjilia's words, he was more and more satisfied with him. He smiled and lowered his head to eat. Yi Qianqian slept until noon. She didn't wake up until midnight. When she saw the time, she suddenly got up. When she went out, they were making lunch. Yi Qianqian knew that something was wrong. She sneaked into the bathroom, washed up, and went out for a walk. When she saw that she was a little more awake, she sneaked home and pretended that she had woken up long ago. "Daddy, I'm back." Yi Zhenhua didn't know when she had gone out. He looked at her and asked curiously, "I thought you were sleeping. Where did you go?" "Humph, am I that kind of person? I went out to play. Can we eat now?" Shunjilia glanced at her and said, "I saw you sneak out and come back in less than 5 minutes." Yi Qianqian said, "You saw wrong." Shunjilia's smile widened. He prepared the meal and took it out. "Yeah, I saw wrong. Go wash your hands." Yi Qianqian glared at him fiercely and dawdled to wash her hands. After dinner, Shunjilia said that he was going back to Kingstown. After Yi Qianqian bade farewell to Fang Tong Tong, she instructed Shunjilia to drive the sleazy lemon-yellow Maserati back in a flashy manner. Along the way, many people turned to look at them, especially Xia Yilin. When she saw them from afar, she gritted her teeth in anger. Yi Qianqian had slept for too long. She spent the entire 2-hour drive chatting with Shenjilia. By the time they reached Connecticut, it was already close to evening. The two of them packed their luggage and prepared the things that needed to be prepared. Yi Qianqian was extremely excited. He only fell asleep after suffering from insomnia for most of the night. The next day, he went to the airport early in the morning. It took him 11 hours to arrive in Venice. The weather in Venice was similar to that in Kingstown. As soon as Yi Qianqian arrived, all the cells in her body became active. He carried his luggage and ran outside, shouting, "Hurry up, hurry up." Shenjilia had no choice but to catch up with her. He jogged along the way and said, "Slow down. What's the rush?" Yi Qianqian had always yearned for this city. It was a city that was surrounded by water. It was romantic, gentle, mysterious, and magical. Chapter 1688. Yi Qianqian had been longing for such a dream for a long time. Shenjilia knew how excited she was. He quickly stepped forward to hold her hand and said, "Don't wander off. Hey, hurry up." Yi Qianqian tugged at Shenjilia, but her grip was too steady. She couldn't move at all. Yi Qianqian tugged a few times but couldn't pull him back, so she gave up. She obediently allowed Shenjilia to pull her out of the airport. Soon, they were out of the airport. Yi Qianqian had already done a lot of research before she arrived. After looking around, she pulled Shenjilia to the bus stop. There were many people on the water bus, so it took a long time, but it was much cheaper. On the other hand, the water taxi took less time, but it was more than 10 times more expensive. After Yi Qianqian explained it to Shenjilia, she pulled him into the bus without hesitation. After buying the ticket, Yi Qianqian chose a seat by the window and sat down. Looking outside, there were quite a lot of people. People came and went with their suitcases, and the bus was soon full. Shenjilia sat next to her and leaned over to look out. He said, "It's full of people now. You should be able to see it when we get out." "Humph." Yi Qianqian looked out and said with some satisfaction, "It's not beautiful now. It's all water. If you want to see something beautiful, you have to go to the main island. I heard that there are many beautiful women there, and it's especially fun." Shenjilia replied, "I booked a suite on the higher floor. It should be more beautiful if you look down." "A suite?" Yi Qianqian turned her head, but when she did, she suddenly found Shenjilia was right next to her face. When she turned her head, Shenjilia's face was inches away from hers. Yi Qianqian's heart suddenly skipped a beat, and she was momentarily stunned. Shenjilia looked at her deeply, and the corners of his lips curled up. He then gently pecked her lips and said, "Yes, a suite." Yi Qianqian's face burned inch by inch, and she said, "You. Why did you come so close out of nowhere? You scared me to death." Shenjilia raised his eyebrows slightly, and with his hand, he said, "I think you're shy. Why is your face so red?" "Hey!" Yi Qianqian glared at him and immediately pushed him away, saying, "Go to hell. Civilization, civilization, do you understand? You can't embarrass your motherland in a foreign country." "You're right, but I'm not going to listen to you," Yi Qianqian said matter-of-factly. F*CKU. F*CKU. Go away. Shenjilia didn't know what to do with her, so he wrapped his arms around her and said, "Be quiet. Everyone's looking at us." Yi Qianqian puffed up her cheeks and looked around. When she found that a few people were looking at her, she said, "So what? Let go of me. It's so hot. Don't hug me. It's not hot. I'm hot." Shenjilia refused to let go of her. He pointed outside and said, "Look over there." Yi Qianqian turned her head and saw a beautiful boat sailing past. It looked dreamy and romantic. It looked just like a Disney princess. Yi Qianqian's eyes lit up when she saw it. Her eyes followed him closely, as if she had completely forgotten that she was being hugged by a man. Yi Qianqian leaned against the window and looked at the blue and fresh water world outside. She felt satisfied and exclaimed, "It's great here. Ah! If we reach the main island, I'm going to rent a boat." "Renting a boat is no problem. May I ask who's going to drive it?" "Of course it's going to be you. Do you even need to ask?" Yi Qianqian said matter-of-factly. "Why else do you think I brought you out?" "Humph. So I'm here to do odd jobs for you?" "Take your time. I'm going to leave now." "Sure. Leave the suite behind for me. I'll stay by myself." "How can I do that? I'm still worried about you being alone." "Sigh, forget it. I'll just risk my life to accompany you." Chapter 1689. Yi Qianqian's question hit the nail on the head. Shengjilie frowned and thought for a moment before replying, "It should be. What do you mean it should be? Don't you know how many rooms you've booked?" Yi Qianqian pinched his hand and said, "You're stuttering. Don't tell me there's only one room." Bingo, there was indeed only one room. Looking at Yi Qianqian's expression, Shengjilie suddenly felt that he was in trouble. He thought for a moment and explained, "I didn't book only one room on purpose. After all, I'm not familiar with Venice. I have a friend who runs a tour group. He knows that I might have high standards for the environment, so he booked the best hotel in Venice for me, and it's in the best location." "Wow, really?" Yi Qianqian's eyes lit up. "Does it mean that it's especially beautiful when you look at it?" "Of course. It's beautiful." Shengjilie secretly heaved a sigh of relief and said, "Think about it. Venice is such a big city. The best place must be of a high class. It'll definitely be very comfortable." "So, you only booked one room?" Wasn't he trying to divert her attention with all these twists and turns? Yi Qianqian could immediately tell what he was trying to do. Shengjilie cursed in his heart. He blinked and didn't say anything. His attitude was tantamount to tacit approval. Yi Qianqian snorted and turned her head away. She didn't say anything either and turned her head to look out the window. Shengjilie was ready to face the storm, but Yi Qianqian's attitude seemed a little different from what he had imagined. Did she just accept the fact that there was only one room for the two of them? Shengilie's heart was uneasy. He followed her gaze and looked out the window. It was a rare moment of silence. There were all kinds of people on the bus. Languages from different countries were mixed together, and it was very lively. When they arrived at their destination, Shengjilie used the GPS and asked for directions before they reached the hotel they had booked. It was indeed the best place in Venice. Just the grandeur of the entrance made Yi Qianqian feel very small. They showed their passports and registered their identities. Soon, they were brought to their rooms by the service staff. The so-called suite was a set of rooms. There was a bedroom, a living room, a kitchen, and a refrigerator. Yi Qianqian had never stayed in such a high-class hotel before. She casually placed her luggage in a corner and walked into the bathroom. Shengjilie glanced around. There was a sofa, a room, and a sofa inside the room. The surroundings. So, he might be destined to sleep on the sofa. He went to the room, but there was only a 2-meter-long and 2-meter-wide bed. There was no place for him at all, Shengjilie sighed. He felt that he had a bitter life. Venice, one of the most romantic places in the world. Gentle water villages, gentlemanly and romantic Italian men, this is the yearning of almost every woman. Yi Qianqian and Shengjilie rented a small boat, and the two of them leisurely shuttled through the alley. Blue water and blue sky. Faint water vapor floated in the air. It was somewhat romantic and wet. When it landed on his body, he was filled with the aura of happiness. It's so beautiful. Yi Qianqian looked at her surroundings, and her eyes were intoxicated. I love it here, Shenzhilia. You like it that much? Yes. I like it. Chapter 1690. When she heard that, Yi Qianqian turned her head. Shenzhilia seemed to have said it casually and didn't look at her. When he sensed her gaze, he turned his head. Yi Qianqian pouted and turned her head away with a look of disgust. You're so shameless. Who wants to have a wedding with you? Yi Qianqian. Yi Qianqian turned her head. What? Yi Qianqian wants to have a wedding with me. The smile on Shenzhilia's face widened. There was a hint of longing on his exquisite and beautiful face. There will be such a day. The golden sunlight shone on his face, and it seemed to be plated with a layer of golden light. In the distance, the church bell rang softly and slowly. It was sacred and slow, accompanied by the pious singing of the believers. Everything was too beautiful to be true. Yi Qianqian stared at Shenzhilia for a long time, and her face grew hotter and hotter. She said, It's too early to say that. It's not early. Look at how old you are. You're a 26-year-old woman, and you're still unmarried. Isn't it embarrassing? In an instant, all the good things had been fed to the dogs. Yi Qianqian clenched her fists and gritted her teeth. She turned her head and roared, Shenzhilia. Aren't you also 27 years old? It's not like you're walking around with 2 screaming children. What's there to be proud of? When Shenzhilia saw that, he turned his head away in disgust. Screaming is for leopards and tigers. How can a human child scream like that? How uncultured. Pfft. You know so much. If you have the guts, bring me a couple. Here. Shenzhilia pointed to a boat not far away. Yi Qianqian followed Shenzhilia's finger and saw a family of 3. The blonde baby was lying at the stern of the boat and looking at the 2 of them. When Shenzhilia pointed at him, he giggled and waved at them. Yi Qianqian was infected by his smile, and her heart softened. She said, Hello. The parents on the other side seemed to notice them. They picked up the baby and waved at them to teach him how to speak. Yi Qianqian couldn't understand Italian at all. But when she saw them laughing, she smiled and waved at them. Do you know what they're talking about? Why are you laughing? Shenzhilia leaned over and wrapped his arm around Yi Qianqian's waist as he waved at the child. The parents looked at each other. Soon after, the husband and wife said something to each other, and then they laughed together. She turned her head to look at Shenzhilia and asked, What are they laughing at? They're probably laughing at us for pretending to be friendly and greeting them even though we don't understand them. I don't think so. I think they might think that we 2 Asians look good. He leaned over and called out, Yi Qianqian. How can your skin be so thick? Yi Qianqian glared at him and pinched his hand. You're rebelling. Ouch. Shenzhilia wailed. It hurts. It hurts. Serves you right. The child in front of her laughed even louder. Yi Qianqian turned her head to take a look. Feeling a little embarrassed, she shouted, Look. The child is laughing at you. Shenzhilia reached out and pulled her face toward him. He planted a kiss on her lips and said, You're the one who's laughing. Yi Qianqian was suddenly kissed. She pushed him away and said, We're on the street, and there are children. It's okay. This is Italy. Children are used to it. Chapter 1691. It's not that easy, Shenzhilia said as he caught a glimpse of a charming building. He pointed to it and said, Let's get on land. There were many unique streets in Venice. The most famous one was the shopping street. Yi Qianqian and Shenzhilia shopped around. Yi Qianqian bought a few unique and beautiful things and began to feel sleepy. She looked at the time and saw that it was only 5:00 in the afternoon. Shunjilia, let's go eat. We'll go back to sleep after eating. Hungry? Hungry and sleepy. Shunjilia looked at her and agreed. He took her back to the hotel. There were many good food and fun places near the hotel. After eating and drinking, Yi Qianqian had no more energy to play. She was extremely sleepy. She looked at the time. It was 8:00 in the evening. In other words, it was already 1:00 in the morning in China. She didn't sleep much on the plane. No wonder she was so sleepy. Yi Qianqian went back, found some clothes, and took a shower. Then, she lay down on the bed and ignored Shunjilia. After Shunjilia finished his shower, he looked at the sofa and then the room. He frowned deeply. He looked around and was a little hesitant. He didn't want to sleep on the sofa. It was too unfair to be a director. But if he slept in the room, would Yi Qianqian hit him when she woke up? It was fine if she hit him, but would it be awkward when they met again in the future? Shunjilia hesitated again and again, but in the end, he didn't dare to go up. He obediently slept on the sofa in the living room, but he felt uncomfortable all over. Yi Qianqian slept until midnight and wanted to go to the bathroom. The bathroom was outside the living room, and there was no bathroom in the room. Yi Qianqian walked out and saw Shunjilia sleeping on the sofa with his legs up in the air. The temperature in the room was a little low. Shunjilia was only wearing a singlet and no quilt. His breathing was steady. Yi Qianqian shivered just walking out. What's more, Shunjilia had slept there for so long. But after looking around, she didn't find anything like a blanket. Finally, Yi Qianqian found that the air conditioning in the room could be adjusted, so she walked out with a quilt. It was the only quilt in the room, and it was big and heavy. Yi Qianqian was struggling to carry it. She walked slowly to the living room before she carried the blanket out and placed it aside. She was panting from the burden of the blanket. As expected of a 5-star hotel, even the quality of the blankets was so thick. She had been busy for half a day, but the dead man had no intention of waking up. Yi Qianqian felt a little angry. She flung the blanket and covered him with it. Shunjilia was sleeping soundly. When he was suddenly awakened, he was startled awake. Then, he flipped over and almost fell down. It was only when he focused his eyes that he saw Yi Qianqian. Between him and Yi Qianqian was a huge pile of blankets. Shunjilia sat up and patted his head. What's wrong? To cover you with a blanket. Yi Qianqian's heart was filled with resentment. Do you know how heavy this blanket is? Shunjilia could feel it firsthand. He reached out and weighed it in his hand. He nodded and said, "It's quite heavy." Yi Qianqian snorted and stomped back to her room. Her only blanket was gone. She had no choice but to adjust the temperature in the room to 28 degrees before lying down. Shunjilia stood outside. He looked down at the blanket and blinked. That's not right, it's really not right. If the blanket was given to her, then what was she going to do? Chapter 1692. Yi Qianqian had just laid down when she heard a knock on the door. Shunjilia held a thick blanket in his arms and looked at the door. After knocking twice, he retracted his hand. What was he trying to do? She instinctively wanted to knock on the door, but what would she do after that? Just as Shunjilia was considering letting it go, the door to the room opened. Yi Qianqian looked at Shunjilia and especially at the blanket. She blinked and asked, "What's up?" "Well, you gave me the blanket. What are you going to sleep on?" "I'll sleep on the bed. I'll just adjust the air conditioning in the room a little higher. It'll be fine." "That won't do. There's no use in raising the temperature of the air conditioning. No blanket means no blanket. What if you catch a cold when you sleep like this? How could I catch a cold so easily? Yi Qianqian thought silently. When she saw Shenjilia's expression, she suddenly remembered the consequences of not drying her hair and catching a cold the last time. She silently swallowed the words that were on the tip of her tongue and said, "It should be fine. Won't you catch a cold easily outside?" Shenjilia's heart skipped a beat. He suddenly had a bold idea. He stared at her and couldn't bring himself to say it in the end. He looked down at the blanket and said, "I'm a man. It'll be fine. I'll help you put the blanket in. It's quite heavy." Yi Qianqian was speechless. What a stubborn man. She had already said that. Couldn't he just go with the flow and say something else? Why did he have to think about a blanket like that? Yi Qianqian was a little annoyed. She really wanted to break open his head to see if it was filled with glue or water. Shenjilia gritted his teeth and turned away. After putting the blanket on the bed, he was in no hurry to leave. He slowly unfolded the blanket and spread it again. The process took a full minute. Yi Qianqian felt a little uncomfortable. She stood by the door for a while before gently closing it. She glanced at Shenjilia and realized that he wasn't paying attention to her. Her heart skipped a beat. She felt guilty for doing something bad. She took a few steps forward and threw herself on the bed. Yi Qianqian lifted the blanket and crawled in. "I'm going to sleep," she said. Shenjilia felt a little defeated when he saw that. When he turned his head, he saw that the door had already been closed. He was stunned. Then, Shenjilia realized that Yi Qianqian was sleeping on the other side of the bed instead. What does that mean? The bold idea in Shenjilia's mind became more and more turbulent, and his heart beat faster and faster. In the end, Shenjilia held his breath. Slowly and stealthily, he lifted the blanket and laid down. A sense of guilt, as if he had done something wrong, instantly engulfed him. However, when he heard the soft breathing sound next to him, he felt an indescribable joy and satisfaction in his heart. He quietly moved over and got closer. Very good." Yi Qianqian did not respond. Shenjilia gently turned around and looked at the back of her head. He took a deep breath and clearly smelled the faint fragrance on her body. Yi Qianqian's eyes were tightly shut. When she sensed his approach, her entire body tensed up. However, when she sensed that he wasn't getting any closer, she felt a faint sense of defeat. Blockhead. Sigh, how did she end up with such a boyfriend? If she hadn't closed the door, this guy wouldn't have dared to lie down. Did he want her to take the initiative? Pooh. Chapter 1693. Perhaps he hadn't gotten over his role yet. As Yi Qianqian thought about it, she became more and more energetic. There was still no movement behind her. Slowly, she turned around. Shenjilia appeared a little reserved. He shrank into a corner and didn't overstep. The distance between them was the width of a pillow. At that moment, Shenjilia had already fallen asleep and was breathing evenly. Yi Qianqian relaxed. She closed her eyes and quickly fell asleep. When he sensed that she had fallen asleep, Shenjilia opened his eyes again. He slowly approached her and gently hugged her shoulders. It was a dreamless night. Venice was 6 hours later than China. Before the sun rose, Yi Qianqian had already woken up naturally. When she opened her eyes, she saw Shenjilia's face right in front of her. Yi Qianqian was startled, and her body trembled slightly. The small commotion woke Shenjilia up with a start. When he saw that she had obviously just woken up, he gently released her and stretched his back. Morning. Yi Qianqian got up with a start and got out of bed. She quickly opened the door and ran out. Shenjilia chuckled. He was in a good mood. Her warmth was still on his hands, and her scent was still on the bed. It felt good. Shenjilia slowly got up and put on his slippers to walk out. Yi Qianqian had already hidden herself in the bathroom. She looked at herself. There was no eye wax, no saliva, and no bad breath. Very good, Yi Qianqian breathed a sigh of relief. Her heart felt as if it had been bitten by ants. It itched and she was extremely happy. Lying on the same bed for one night, rounding it up, would be considered as having had sex. This was a breakthrough development. Good. Yi Qianqian hummed a little tune as she began to wash up. The corners of her mouth couldn't help but curl up. Her joy was self-evident. When she went out, Shenjilia was on the phone. From his tone, he seemed to be talking to an elder at home. When he saw Yi Qianqian, Shenjilia suddenly broke into a bright smile and said, "Grandma, she's here. I'll put her on the phone." Yi Qianqian was stunned. She blinked and pointed to herself. "Your grandma?" "My grandma heard that I went overseas with my girlfriend and wanted to talk to you for a while." His grandma. Wasn't she the old lady who had bullied Yi Yu so badly? She was very nervous, but since Shenjilia had already said so, she couldn't refuse. With a bitter expression, Yi Qianqian took it and said in a fawning manner, "Hello, Grandma." When old Mrs. Shen heard the young girl's voice, she was overjoyed. She smiled brightly and laughed amiably. "Hey! Are you Qianqian? Gosh, I keep hearing Jilia mention you. This is the first time he's so interested in a girl. I thought he was going to be single for the rest of his life. It's all thanks to you, Qianqian." Huh. Yi Qianqian giggled. She didn't know what else to say. She looked at Shenjilia for help. Shenjilia's smile deepened. He took the phone from her and said, "Grandma, I'm shy. I can't talk to you anymore. We're going to have breakfast." When old Mrs. Shen heard this, she instinctively glanced at the time. It was already past noon. There must be a story behind this. Could it be that this brat was already conscious enough to start cooking? Chapter 1694. When Shenjilia heard that, he subconsciously glanced at Yi Qianqian. Yi Qianqian heard a little of it and blushed. Shenjilia immediately said with a straight face, "Grandma, what are you thinking? We are very serious. It's only 6:00 in Venice. Let's go for breakfast." Huh? There's still a time difference? The disappointment in old Mrs. Shen's voice was obvious. You might as well sleep until midnight. If the young lady is willing to travel with you alone, it means she's willing to be with you. Do whatever you want. Don't suppress your nature, young man. This time, it wasn't just Yi Qianqian. Even Shenjilia felt his face heat up. He coughed awkwardly and said, "You're too old. I'm hanging up." Old Mrs. Shen's words were very straightforward. Shenjilia blushed a little. Yi Qianqian pretended not to hear and turned around. "I'm going to get changed." Then, he walked into the room. He was very fast. Shenjilia couldn't help but recall what his grandmother had just said. If the young lady is willing to travel with you alone, it means she's willing to be with you. That was the logic, but would it really work when it came to Yi Qianqian? Shenjilia began to have doubts. After washing up, Shenjilia changed into a fresh set of clothes and went to enjoy an Italian breakfast. After breakfast, Yi Qianqian dragged Shenjilia to the church. There was a church in Venice that was said to have the most history in all of Italy, St. Mark's Basilica. Yi Qianqian walked around and saw the history of St. Mark's Basilica. The history was laid out in front of her. Yi Qianqian found it a little strange and secretly clicked her tongue. You can search the history on Baidu. I won't post it. I don't want to be accused of making up the number of words. After reading it, Yi Qianqian's heart was filled with emotion. How could this work? Shengjilie was much calmer and said, "This church won't do." "What? You can't get married in this kind of church." He looked so serious that Yi Qianqian thought he was going to say something serious. When she heard that, Yi Qianqian said, "Of course the marriage should be done in China. How can you get married abroad?" "Well, that makes sense." Shengjilie put his arm around her shoulder and said, "I actually think so too." "Go, lackey. I'm being serious." Shengjilie put his arm around her shoulder and said in a frivolous manner, "Actually, I like Chinese weddings. My grandmother is quite superstitious. She always thinks of herself as a demigod. You know, this has to do with our ancient Chinese traditions. My grandmother actually rejected church weddings." Pfft, Yi Qianqian had heard Yi Yuyu mention the phrase, half-fairy, before. He also heard that this old lady sometimes looked a little frivolous, but in fact, she was very mysterious. Especially since he had said that Yi Yuyu was destined to marry twice. In the past, when Yi Yuyu and Shen Luo were still together, Yi Qianqian had scoffed at it. However, after witnessing Yi Yuyu's divorce from Shen Luo and her marriage to Li Jinnan, Yi Qianqian didn't dare to underestimate her anymore. It was better to believe that it was true than not. Chapter 1695. You really didn't go? Really? Shengjilie nodded his head. But in the end, the wedding didn't go through, and that incident even happened. Yi Qianqian nodded her head. She suddenly thought of something and said, "Your grandmother is so mysterious. Couldn't she have predicted that Guan Kui would cause trouble at the wedding? If your grandmother had known earlier, this wouldn't have happened, and your brother wouldn't have spent so much time in jail for nothing. I've already said that she's a demigod. A demigod is unpredictable. If she could predict everything, wouldn't she be an immortal?" "That's true. Has your grandmother ever told you when you're going to get married?" "No. It's weird. She always predicted the fate of others, but she never predicted the fate of our family." Yi Qianqian felt her hair stand on end. "I think it's true. Besides, doesn't fortune-telling differentiate between close and distant relatives? It's normal for people like you, who are directly related by blood, to be unable to predict it. The secrets of heaven cannot be revealed." Shengjilie looked surprised and said, "Wow, you're quite perceptive. When you meet my grandmother later, she'll probably put you under her wing." "Pfft. I don't want to be a charlatan. I'm hungry. Let's go eat." Shengjilie held Yi Qianqian in his arms and went to a random restaurant on the street. Most restaurants in Italy were more elegant. Even the waiters were very good-looking. They were all tall and strong, with blonde hair and blue eyes. They were so handsome that they could make one's eyes water. Yi Qianqian's eyes were glued to them. Her soul almost left her body. As Shengjilie ate, he said, "Don't be fooled by their good looks. They're actually here to trick you into spending money." Sure enough, his words came true. Very quickly, a handsome young man sensed Yi Qianqian's gaze and walked over to her. In English, he asked, "Beautiful lady, would you like a drink?" Yi Qianqian was intoxicated by the sight and asked, "What drinks do you have?" Shengjile's expression darkened. He said, "No, thank you." He reached out to pat Yi Qianqian and said, "What's there to look at?" "Stop looking." Yi Qianqian ignored him. She swatted his hand away and said, "Ignore him." The handsome young man smiled elegantly and politely introduced himself. Yi Qianqian moved closer and closer to him, her eyes fixed on his face. Shengjile's face darkened. "Yi Qianqian." Yi Qianqian acted as if she hadn't seen it and asked, "Oh, I don't know. Tell me, what's good to drink?" "Our signature drink is the appointment of romance, €50 a cup. Would you like one?" 50 euros. F***ck. This is daylight robbery. Shenjilia tugged at Yi Qianqian and said, it's almost $400. Are you going to buy it? Yi Qianqian was shocked when she heard the price. She blinked and asked, so expensive? The handsome young man chuckled and said, it's as beautiful as you. Beautiful things are worth everything to have. Oh dear, Yi Qianqian's heart was about to melt. When she saw his mesmerizing smile, she reached out a finger and said, can I have a glass? Sure. Please wait for a moment. The handsome young man quickly walked away. When Yi Qianqian turned her head, she saw that Shenjilia's face had darkened. Yi Qianqian had never seen such an expression on Shenjilia's face before. She coughed lightly and said guiltily, well, I just wanted to experience what a $400 drink tastes like. Chapter 1696. No, you misunderstand me. I really just want to try a drink that costs more than $400. Yi Qianqian looked at Shenjilia with a serious expression and said, have you ever tried a drink that costs $400? Shenjilia saw her serious expression and pursed his lips in silence. After a long time, he finally calmed down and said, good-looking men are just trying to fool you. Stay away from good-looking men in the future. I won't. There's an exception. Yi Qianqian looked at him and smiled flatteringly. You see, aren't you very nice to me? Shenjilia couldn't keep a straight face after being praised so abruptly, but he had to keep a straight face. Holding back his laughter, he said, there's only one person in the world. Everyone else, stay away from me. Okay. When Yi Qianqian saw that he was no longer angry, she giggled and ate a mouthful of noodles. She said, but this drink is really expensive. I don't know what it looks like, but it costs $400. My heart aches. Do you regret it? Yes. Yi Qianqian nodded pitifully. Shenjilia snorted softly. You're not too stupid after all. Since you want it, just keep it. Anyway, it's a rare opportunity. As long as you're happy. Yi Qianqian looked at Shenjilia in front of her and put her palms together. She was touched and said, Shenjilia, you're an angel. Go away. Stop being disgusting. Eat your food. Yi Qianqian chuckled and lowered her head to eat obediently. After all, she was in the wrong in the first place. A wise man submits to circumstances. It's always good to have a good attitude. However, after they ate for a while, they saw the handsome young man return. Hello, Mississippi. Yi Qianqian saw the tall and straight figure, and her eyes were once again intoxicated. She said, you're back. The handsome young man nodded gracefully and said, please sign your name here. May I ask, what is the relationship between you and this person? As he spoke, he pointed to Shenjilia. Shenjilia's expression didn't look too good from the moment the waiter appeared. When he heard the question, he spoke first and said calmly, I'm her boyfriend. The waiter immediately understood and asked, are the two of you from Wuxia? Yes. May I know your surname? Shen, her surname is Yi. The waiter nodded and began to explain, sir, your girlfriend's purchase of the Covenant of Romance has taken effect. Both of you have a 5-year agreement with our restaurant. As he spoke, the handsome boy took out 2 key rings. The key ring was exquisitely made, and the name of the restaurant was engraved on it. Today, 5 years later, you might have married this lady and given birth to a cute baby, or maybe you two aren't together, but we will keep this memory for you. When the time comes, you can show us this key card. This will be a very romantic agreement. Yi Qianqian took the key card and suddenly understood. That's why it's called a romantic engagement. Yes, miss, I am willing to wait for your beauty in this place for 5 years. 5 years later, you and I will have a completely new appearance. The handsome young man was elegant and gentlemanly as he gently extended his hand. Such a noble and beautiful gesture melted Yi Qianqian's heart. He reached out and gently placed his hand on hers. The handsome boy immediately bent down. But before he could kiss her, a hand stopped him in the middle. When he turned around, Shengilia's expression didn't look too good. He said, "Wuxia people don't like it when other men kiss their women." Chapter 1697. When the handsome young man heard Shengilia's possessive words, he immediately smiled and apologized. "I'm sorry, sir. When it comes to beautiful things, people can't help themselves." Yi Qianqian didn't know much English, so she didn't quite understand what he was saying. But when he heard the word beautiful, his heart bloomed with joy. Her smile froze, and she looked at Shengilia with a hint of smugness. She said, "Look, this foreigner has good taste. He could tell that I'm a peerless beauty with just one look." Shengilia couldn't bear to look at her. He turned his head around and said angrily, "Save it. She's doing this to earn your money 5 years from now. What beauty? It's all fake. It doesn't exist. Hey, you're blind and you don't allow others to speak the truth? Who are you? What kind of truth is that? He's deceiving his conscience and lying to you. Do you really think that he has a foreigner's sense of beauty? That's why he thinks an Asian girl is beautiful? Wake up, it's fake. F***ck. Shengilia, do you have a death wish?" Yi Qianqian's voice wasn't soft, and the people around her looked over. Shengilia looked around and smiled sheepishly. He pulled Yi Qianqian aside and said, "We're in public. Can't you be a little more civil? Don't curse at the drop of a hat. It'll be awkward if you bump into your fellow countrymen." Yi Qianqian took the opportunity to pull him over and pinch his arm. Shengilia wailed, but he didn't dare to make a sound. His face turned red. The handsome young man at the side could not help but smile. Yi Qianqian didn't notice it. She glared at him and said, "You still know how to be embarrassed? What if your fellow countrymen see you talking about your girlfriend like that? If they learn from you and end up falling out with your family, you'll become a sinner for all eternity. You're such a cheap mouth." Shengilia turned his head to look at Yi Qianqian pitifully and said, "Can't you loosen your grip a little? Look at how others are imitating you when they see you like this. If they all go home and abuse you, won't that be even worse? Does it hurt?" Shengilia immediately nodded his head in grievance. "Yeah. Serves you right." Yi Qianqian twisted him again before she managed to push him away. Shengilia rubbed his hands, which were stinging from the pinching, and said, "You're too cruel. This is domestic violence. Serves you right. If you were afraid, you wouldn't marry me. If you marry me, I'll pinch you every day, every day. I'll pinch you until your body is swollen and you'll die of pain." Shengilia no longer felt the pain. He walked past the handsome young man and leaned forward. He reached out and wrapped his arms around Yi Qianqian's waist. Yi Qianqian turned and looked around. She warned in a low voice, "Get lost." "What are you doing?" "Then I'll do it for you. I'll do it for you in the future." The corners of Shengilia's mouth widened into a grin, revealing his pearly white teeth. He looked a little silly. Yi Qianqian's face heated up, and her body tensed up. Was this guy serious? He really wanted to marry her? Thinking about how he went to her house, asked her out, and talked about her with his grandmother, when all the connections were put together, Yi Qianqian's heart skipped a beat. However, a look of disdain immediately appeared on her face. She bumped into him and said, "I'm not going to pinch you anymore, I'm not going to pinch you anymore." Scram, scram. How can you do that? You're acting like a hooligan, buddy. So what if I'm acting like a hooligan? I like it. Scram. Yi Qianqian pushed him away. Her face was getting redder and redder. Chapter 1698. Yi Qianqian felt even more embarrassed. She lowered her head, pushed him away, and sat down. The handsome boy took out a wooden board with the date and date written on it. It was 5 years from today. Yi Qianqian wrote her name in Chinese. Shengjilia took it and wrote, "Baby, Daddy knew you'd come, Shengjilia." Yi Qianqian looked at it and said, "Hey, what if you don't come with me in 5 years? Won't it be awkward to see this board?" "No, I'll definitely come with you, and I'll bring a child with me." Shengjilia gestured in front of him. "It's this big. I'll hold it in my arms, and then we'll have a romantic date for 30 to 50 years. Yeah, life will be perfect." Shengilia's wild and unrealistic words were all about the beautiful future he had planned for her. Yi Qianqian's heart seemed to be gently stirred by something, and an indescribable throbbing rippled in her heart. Seeing that Yi Qianqian was in a daze, Shengjilia quietly leaned over and whispered, "Are you very touched?" Yi Qianqian's throbbing was scared away. She waved her hand disdainfully and said, "Feel your ass." Shengjilia dodged in time and laughed. "All right, let's go back after dinner. Aren't you tired after playing all day?" "No, I want to see the night view. I heard that Venice is very beautiful at night." Yi Qianqian looked at Shengjilia with a yearning expression. "It's very beautiful." "Okay." Shengjilia went back to sit down. When he looked up, he saw a waitress carrying a tray over and placing a glass of blue liquid in front of Yi Qianqian. "Your drink, promise of romance." As soon as the drink was placed on the table, Yi Qianqian felt her eyes light up. The design of the glass was very special. There was a white light at the bottom of the glass, illuminating the floating silver stars in the blue liquid. It was like the stars in the night sky. It was so beautiful that it was hard to take one's eyes off it. "It's so beautiful." Yi Qianqian stared at the drink in front of her. Her eyes were full of amazement. It was a dark-colored drink, but it was as beautiful as the Milky Way in the night sky. Yi Qianqian picked up her phone and took several photos. She added filters to make them even more beautiful. "Wow, it's great. Promise of Romance was really worthy of this name. Beautiful and romantic." Yi Qianqian posted it on her WeChat Moments with the caption, "5 years, our romantic engagement." After she was done, Yi Qianqian picked up the straw and put it in. He had just taken a whiff, but it didn't seem to have any taste. But in the middle of the drink, a layer of white seemed to float. Like cream. Yi Qianqian held the drink in her mouth. After a while, she felt a cooling sensation. The texture was amazing. Yi Qianqian had never had such a special drink before. It tasted like mint, but it also had a hint of creamy sweetness. "It's delicious," Yi Qianqian exclaimed. "It's just a little expensive." Shengjilia reached out his hand. "Let me have a taste." "No. I'll pay the bill." Yi Qianqian immediately handed the cup over and said flatteringly, "Please, have a drink." Shengjilia chuckled. He accepted the straw and took a sip. There was indeed something special about it. It was cool, fragrant, and sweet. He smacked his lips and looked up, only to see a strange expression on Yi Qianqian's face. What happened? You're tuning into the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.